this needs to be notarized by Janet and sent to the K&P for the closing.
Okay. All right, good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting on August 10th, 2015. If we could start off with an invocation by Selectman Dawes. Please stand.
Father God, we come before you with great thanks for the many blessings that you bestow on our community and ourselves. Lord, we simply ask that our community would grow tighter together. We ask for an extra measure of wisdom and discernment in taking up the affairs of our town government. We thank you for all you do, and we pray in the manner we were each taught, just as I was taught to pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Well, there's a lot of asks there, Doug. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right. Okay. Looks like we have a full house tonight, which is great. Love to see everyone. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. Let's get through some quick administrative stuff here. We've got some minutes from May 18th that we need to approve. If anyone wishes to motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and second discussion.
Yes. Under correspondence, I'd just like to set the record straight under Memorial Day observance letter. It was the Georgetown Electric Light Department that partnered with the American Legion and VFW for new flags.
What page was that on?
That would,
Was it not marked on the page?
the
Correspondence,
page
I
is
got
not
it.
numbered.
Yeah.
It's under correspondence.
Yep, I got it.
This one says, there's a typo, VFW has partnered with the American Legion for new flags. It was
That's-
actually the electric company that partnered with the Legion and VFW.
Okay.
Light department, okay.
I just need a motion to amend that.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of voting on the amended language, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any other discussion?
I would, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
When we were discussing the parcel F, I guess it was, two letters had been read, and I had asked that they be entered into the minutes. And I think that all correspondences should be, so I guess my question is, if these are our minutes, it's more to Janet, if someone's looking up the correspondence and that, how do they find them?
Well, if someone requested it, because I scan in the whole packet, so I have the whole packet scanned in, and I do have the originals of all the meetings.
So I'm just, I know, I think under the open meeting law and that if you have something, that's supposed to become part of your minutes. So maybe we can just follow up on that, whether we're doing it the correct way or not.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the amended meeting minutes, say aye.
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 All right. Okay, let's see. We got a couple of letters here. First is a letter of resignation from Susan Madigan for the Cultural Council. Susan has certainly been on volunteering and helping out for a long time, and she's got just other commitments that she needs to take that time off. So thank you, Susan, for your service and for your help on the Cultural Council. I hope we can, if they need additional volunteers to help, please contact Janet. And we got another letter from for the resignation of Kate Hanlon from the Cultural Center. Same thing, she's been volunteering for a long, long time, and I think she's ready to have some fresh blood come into the Cultural Council. So, Kate, thank you very much again for your service as well. Janet, do you know if they're actually looking for members now to replace Susan and Kate?
They will need.
They will.
members,
Okay,
yeah.
so anyone's interested in the Cultural Council, please connect with the Town Administrator's Office. Okay, so we have a letter here from the AJC, Global Jewish Advocacy. And basically, they're asking us to support their initiative here. I guess it's basically an anti-Semitism initiative here. And historically, as a board, we really haven't been voting or sending letters of support for issues like this. So what would the board wish to do?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is actually directing support from mayors of larger municipalities. Everybody that has signed it is a mayor. And when in the letter says and the petition is, we the undersigned layers and municipal leaders, but I haven't seen any.
Well, I think that the top 25 here are the well-known mayors, and I don't make that list because I'm not very well known outside of a few miles out here. But that said, would you guys wish to pass over it, or do you want to do anything with it?
Pass over it. I think the actual initiative itself says mayors against, united against anti-Semitism, so, we're not mayors, so, at this point.
I mean, I'm all in favor of
Yeah, me too, but-
anti-Semitism.
We act as the mayor of the town here, as a board, that's it, it wouldn't be just me. Okay, you guys want to just table it, or just pass over it?
I mean, I make a motion, and we'll see where it goes, but,
All right.
make a motion that we support the AGC mayors against, I think it said European, it's, against anti-Semitism. Yep, there was no, international in there, so I make that motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second on this. Any discussion? Let's open up for discussion.
I'm gonna abstain. I usually abstain from a lot of these things. As you stated earlier, Phil, a lot of these come in front of us, and I know everybody's out there and would like everybody to support everything they do, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, again, it's geared towards European Union countries, so I don't know how much of an effect, global effect we have here in Georgetown, but, it's a good thing.
Okay.
Again,
All
I've
right.
stayed away from these in the past, but
Okay.
I made the motion, so.
All right. Doug, any comment?
No, I don't, because I agree with Dave. When you read the letter, it's calling on European counterparts.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
And abstained.
You abstain. I have an aye and an aye. To accept and vote? That's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll hurt anything. I think
Okay.
most of this big stuff.
And I will vote on to aye as well. Okay.
Yeah. But I think we're all in favor of
right.
anti-Semitism.
I completely agree with that. All right, we also got a letter from the Mass DOT regarding resurfacing on Interstate 95 from Newburyport to Salisbury. And basically, the work will consist of resurfacing the main part of the highway on 995, the ramps at Route 133, Central Street, South Street, the 113 interchanges, and portions of the state-owned secondary roads at the aforementioned aforementioned interchanges. So there'll be some work on our interchanges coming up on 95. So good. Means I don't have to worry about another windshield I have to replace.
No, no, they give themselves a nice long time, up to 930 calendar days.
3 years of work, right? Okay. Let's go right into new business. So we have to take a vote and sign the bond document. So if we could have our finance accounting department come on up and share some information with us, that would be super.
Mr. Chairman, Margaret McLean is our financial advisor from Unibank, and you all know Jackie, our treasurer.
We are also familiar with both of them now. Thank you very much. But for the record, would you guys please just state your name and address, please?
Sure. I'm Margaret McLean, and I work for Unibank in Whitensville.
Excellent.
And I am Jacqueline Como, treasurer collector in Georgetown.
All right, welcome, ladies. Good evening. How are you?
Good.
All right, so why don't we just open this up and just you can share where we are and what we need to do to help you guys take some pressure off of
Okay.
your backs, I guess, as well as ours.
Do you want me to- So last Tuesday, we took bids for the middle high school and the CPC articles that were out for borrowing. You got 6 bids. You did really well. The winning bid came from Janie Montgomery Scott. The average on the bonds is a 2.575. So the coupons start at 2% and go up to 4% over the next 20 years. The 20-year portion is the school portion, and then the other 2 pieces were 7-year issues, but we rolled everything in all together.
Right.
So, you'll have to take the formal vote to award the bonds like you have done in the past, and then all the paperwork has to be signed as well. But do you have any questions about the bids or anything?
Sure. So if if I understand this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 bidders on
Yep.
this, and the top bidder or the lowest bidder
Yep.
on the bond rate is 2.57, et cetera, et cetera. That's with Janie Montgomery Scott.
Correct.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Yeah, cool.
So weighted average rate for the whole time period is 2.574, even though the coupon's 4%?
Because you're getting a premium on top of that as well,
Okay.
which is funds in addition to, the total you're borrowing is 4.5 million, and then you're getting an additional 273,000 on top of that.
Okay.
So that
So
helps
that gets
to,
amortized over the life and
Yeah.
brings it back down. Okay. Because I was a little concerned about the interest rate being 4%. I mentioned something to Mike briefly, but.
if you notice where it is, it's all in the non-callable portion of the bonds, so that's where they're making their most money.
Yeah. Okay.
For the public's sake, can you just go a little bit further in detail? Maybe Mike, you can help. $4.5 million is covering specific projects.
Yep, $1 million of it was the turf fields. Hold on, I don't wanna give you the wrong amount.
That's fine.
So 3.4 million was for the middle high school, $1 million was the turf fields, and then the balance of 131,067 was the
Conservation
restriction.
restriction.
Thank you, I
Yeah,
couldn't think of the
yeah.
name. So those are the 3 pieces that make up the 4.5 million.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any particular questions? I mean, I know we've gone through a lot of previous work to get to this point, so this is
I would
good.
question as to early payment.
There's a call on the bond is typically done, in this case, there's an 8-year call, so if rates go down in 8 years, we can call them or pay them off. Even if if the rates don't go down, if you want to prepay a portion of it, you always have that option as well. After the 8th year, you can do it.
But I guess on the CPC part, I know we were looking, now that was at, I believe, this was 2013 town meeting. And we're just borrowing it now for 7 years, so that takes it out quite a ways, but I know that, I believe we've put 2 payments aside already. And I think that was going towards a bond anticipation notes. So how does, I guess it's still, and I was in and saw Jackie today about this, so I guess I'm wondering how that payment is gonna work.
That I'm not privy to. That's something you guys have worked out. I did what was directed as far as the term
So
of the
I guess what I'm
bonds.
saying, if CPC continues to, the town continues to back the money as it's been going, will there be any penalties for if it's paid off earlier?
But you can't pay it off until at least 8 years out. So and those are only 7-year bonds on those two borrowing pieces. So you can't pay those off.
Yeah, the call features. after
Call
7
features
years.
is after, in this case, it's after 8 years.
If we wanted to, do we have the option to sell the bonds in the market, based on where interest rates are? If that case, we'd probably take a loss. I mean,
When,
we would,
what do
in
you
other
mean?
words, if we were to, can you sell a municipal bond to somebody else? Probably not, right? There's no
If you're
market
the, if
for
you're
it.
the holder of
Right,
it, you
right.
could resell it to somebody
Right,
else if you
but
wanted, yeah.
we're the issuer, you can't.
You're the issuer, no. So right now, you're the issuer, so Janie is the one that is the underwriter. They're the ones that will be holding your bonds on date of settlement. They probably have already resold them off to various
Right.
other
Investors.
locations, so.
Right, so it's a 7-year, so for 7 years, it's not callable. We can only call it after the 7th year, well, the
After the
8th year.
APR, yeah.
It should all be paid off.
Right.
Mhm.
So we can put the interest payments, interest aside, but not the, the principal.
Right.
There's no need to. I mean, we can put it aside and hold it, but I don't know what the rules are as far as the state tax department, what's the, state Department of Revenue would say on that, but.
I guess then to that, were we saving money by putting this all together in one package?
Yes.
Is that why we waited this long and took how many bond anticipation notes did we have? 2 or
No,
more?
no, we didn't borrow this till last year.
Yeah.
We
We had
actually-
2 for the school.
The CPC, we did that when you purchased the land restriction, so that wasn't until December, this past December. I'm sorry, December of 2013. And then the turf field, same thing, we actually did that in stages. Part of it we did in 2013, and the balance was needed in 2014. So you didn't borrow it until you actually needed the funds in both cases.
Okay. It gets a little confusing
Hmm.
for this guy when I'm on a board and,
Right with you,
and it-
Harry.
and it continues to go this way and we were actually, I think, hoping to pay it off even earlier, so.
Mr. Chairman, so the bond anticipation notes, just those are interest-only payments, right? There's no
Correct.
principal to those.
Correct.
So that's just the interest that you're paying on the money that you're using until you turn it into a long-term bond.
Mhm. Yep.
So by saying we have the money aside, probably for the interest payments, but no thought process to pay down principal early. If that's the case, put it in the stab fund and then, at some point in time, after the 7 years, the money will be there, what you call the note, so. That'd be a way a way to do it, but.
Doug, sorry, you're gonna say something?
No, that'd just be beating a dead horse.
Okay. Harry, you had
Borrow the
a,
money and-
you had a question out there?
Mr. Chairman,
Would you
yes.
state your name and address for the record, my friend?
Of course, Harry Locatilia, Chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. I just want to reiterate what Gary was saying. 2 payments out of the $1 million bond that we're looking for, that's exclusively CPC. We already have $400,000 set aside, and we anticipate in 3 years having all the rest of it. Maybe I didn't understand it correctly. We won't be able to pay it off until such time as the 8 years have passed?
No, you'll be making annual payments of principal and interest against both pieces for the
Can't be
next
four
For
7
8
years.
years. So for 5 more years than when we actually have the entire amount in cash.
Well, I mean, that's good and bad, right? So the good is maybe you don't, there's other projects that you could actually allocate funds to, that you don't need as much money to. But the answer is to your question is, we cannot pay it off early. At 2.75%, right?
And it's an interest rate risk hedge, because rates are predicted to go up, so we might as well grab the money now and lock it in for 7 years, and then decide at the end of 7 years when you wanna pay it off. Because if you didn't do lock it in for 7, you probably wouldn't get people to buy them in the first place. So you make the rate a little attractive now to get people to buy them for 7 years, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, those rates will probably be a lot higher. So we actually made out on the deal as if we were gonna borrow later. Yeah, maybe we're holding the money for too long. Harry, I agree with you. Maybe we're being aggressive about putting the money aside, but that's fine. I mean,
If I could just say, interestingly enough, my understanding is we're earning interest on that money anyway. The money that we
right,
have already
but
set
not at the
aside.
rate that we're borrowing
No,
it at.
no, no,
So,
no.
so there's no arbitrage. It doesn't match. So
Barely.
you're not gonna break
Doesn't-
even.
doesn't
No,
even
we're
break
getting
even.
15, 20 basis points on our money, and we're borrowing it at 2.75.
Right.
Hmm,
So you're underwater by 2.5 points at least
on a million.
on $1 million. Yep.
Jim, you had a comment,
No, that was
question?
my question, what was the interest
Can you
rate?
say your name and address for the record, my friend?
Jim Donato, 12 School Street, Georgetown. I just wanna see how much the interest of stabilization fund was, if we put it into a fund to hold it, we'll have all the money in 5 years.
You almost have more in your wallet right
Yeah,
now.
that's fine.
So the question is, why have we gone to that process or the thought process? Why don't we just put away what we have to pay on an annual basis for 7 years? Why are we accruing the money so quickly? To Phil's point, maybe use that money elsewhere. Money, I don't understand why you wanna pay it off in 5 years if it was structured. Maybe we should have told them we wanted a 5-year call feature rather than a 7-year call feature, if we were gonna be that aggressive on the payback. So maybe that's what, maybe some coordination for the next time we wanna do
I guess
that.
part of it is that we didn't expect it to say, take 2 years to get to
Right.
the bonding area.
Right.
Now it's been 2 years to the bonding area, now it's another 7 years, which makes what we thought we could do in 5 years, it's running out into 9.
Right.
Like, if we set aside the money, encumber it, then it's gonna be the same as.
So CPC does have a account for that, I believe, right?
Okay.
I don't know whether it stays there or it's where, but,
Yes, they do.
yeah.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
All right, then, are you guys ready to, vote for the,
Is it one vote? Or is it
One vote for
one
everything.
vote for all
yeah.
the
That-
different
Yep.
pools?
Somewhere I thought it was written out in this.
Was it there? I didn't see it. Okay, here it is. Let's see. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we hereby determine in accordance with general laws, Chapter 70B, that the amount of the cost of the Georgetown Middle High School projects authorized by a vote of the town passed on May 5th, Article 5 not being paid by the school facilities grant is $3,970,458, and we hereby approve of the issuance of notes and bonds in such amount under said general laws, Chapter 70B. Just keep going.
are you guys, do you need separate votes for each one?
It's whatever you're comfortable with. If you don't wanna read the whole thing, you don't, just, reference as
Right.
further stated.
As submitted, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the bond paperwork as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right. The clerk is to sign this,
Yes.
and that would be you, my friend.
But the board has to sign these documents, and,
Oh my God, all of those?
yep.
Glad I brought my
And,
All right, we'll do that after.
Margaret would like to take them with her, though.
Of course. Sure. Oh dear Lord.
Like, all of these?
All of those, yes. They're all flipped open to the page.
Okay.
To the page or?
Everything is flipped open, so everything that's in front of you should.
Okay,
Yeah.
orange is seal.
Don't mess them up.
I gotcha.
The clerk has already sealed everything.
Okay, so it's just one per page.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can start that pack, you can start that pack.
This is like buying a house.
Just the red one.
Just the red ones.
just the red. Yeah, the orange are for notarizing.
All right.
We don't need those for tonight.
Oh, the acceptance, but those,
Yeah, those, I don't have to number it.
oh, okay.
Just this and that's. I'll wait for Gary to sign. Sign Doug, is that one done?
There you go, Gary.
These need to go.
Dave. Thanks for your patience out there.
There's a little line that says, make sure you read the whole thing before you sign, right?
Speed reading.
No, 'cause I just got those today. But I didn't give this.
Mm-hmm.
Something else.
This is why I couldn't be president of the United States. I'll tell you that.
That's why they just have a law.
He's got his 47 pens he's got to sign and give away each pen.
I had this.
One letter per pen.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I need
Yeah.
to sign this one? Yeah.
We're almost there.
Phil, this is that, acceptance for the
There's two of them.
CPC land. One's the Olson property, and the other one's the Tolman property. That was approved by town meeting.
This is just a signature. We don't need to vote on anything, right? Or do we?
You'd have to. Correct, just sign it.
Which way do you want them? Oh, man.
Motion?
I'm gonna check out. I don't know if I have to vote for-
No, because the town meeting's already.
This one and this one.
To accept the deed.
Somebody missed
I
this.
think they may have to vote to accept the deed.
Yeah. should make a motion to accept the two deeds.
You want a motion? Okay.
On all of these?
So what do we need?
Signatures and a motion to accept the deeds of the properties mentioned in those acceptances. One's the two CPC properties
Mhm.
that they purchased, one from Olson, one from Tolman,
Mhm.
90,000. No, it's not, it just, the closing, we just got them today.
Deeds,
So I wanna close next Monday, it's already been delayed, so that we scheduled it.
So what you're saying is this is the land that we approved for CPC at our last town meeting?
Correct.
it's just the deed though, right? So
Accepting the deed,
accepting
yeah.
the deed.
Yeah, so they can close on,
The motion, make a motion.
All right, so I've just, Mr. Chairman, I've just been handed two deeds for a prior transaction through CPC, and this was approved by town meeting. I guess the closing is gonna happen next week, so I'll make a motion that we accept the deed on, let's see, Assessors Map 16, Lot 6 from Alan Olson, such land to be held in the care, custody, management, control of the Parks and Rec Commission. So make that motion to accept the deed on that property.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Again, this was,
All those
Mr.
in-
Chairman, voted by town meeting, right?
Yep. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Mr.
Excellent.
Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the deed for Assessors Map 16, Lot 7 for Mr. James N. Tolman, such land to be held in the care and custody, management, and control of the Parks and Rec Commission, and this was voted under Article 24 of the May 4th, 2015 annual town meeting.
Any second?
Second.
A second? Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Doug, you just need the signatures on there, and then we'll get going right into our next piece of business, which is the request for approval for a change of manager at Rivo's Bistro 2, doing business at Holloway's Bar and Grill. Good evening. Hello,
Good
Attorney.
evening.
How are you?
Very well. I hope the Board of Selectmen is doing well.
Great.
Mr. Farrell,
Would
hi,
you
Janet.
please state your name and address for the record, please?
Most certainly.
Thank you.
Jill Mann, 191 South Main Street in Middleton, here on behalf of Ribo's Bistro 2, doing business as Ribo's Bistro, but doing business as the Black Swan Country Club and Holloway's Bar and Grill. Here with me this evening is Tony Ieta, who has worked at the club for a very long time and has actually managed the operations for the owner, Jack Swansburg. As you know, we were here a few months ago, and there were some issues with the application, and Mr. Aida has elected with the nomination of Jack Swansburg to become the manager responsible for overseeing the liquor license at Holloway's Bar and Grill. And I don't know if you have any, obviously, we presented to you a full application, the query, the personal information, a list of his previous jobs, as well as his proof of citizenship. I don't know if you have any questions for Mr. Aida, but he's obviously here to respond to anything you may want to know.
Okay, well, welcome. Thanks for coming down, and I know we see you down there all the time, so.
I'm there quite
so
often.
Welcome this evening. So I'll just open this up to our board to see if anyone has any particular questions for Anthony or Attorney Mann.
Well, I guess erring on the side of caution, is there anything we need to know that we don't know?
Certainly is nothing. It should be nothing.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I might, so has ownership changed from, well, no, right, just management?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Jack Swansburg continues to be the owner
Okay.
of the club. The only thing was the manager, the old manager, James Holloway, has left the club. So we need to put in a new manager to oversee the liquor license. And so Mr. Aida is it. And we figured also that with Tony, there would be more continuity, because if there is another transition, Tony's not going anywhere. He's been there for a long time and has worked with Jack Swansburg for years. So there's a bit more comfort, if you will, to continuity of management.
Terrific. Well, I haven't heard any complaints from our chief, which people would be complaining to our chief, and then he'd come to complaining to us. You guys, from what I've seen and what I've experienced down there, it's an incredible operation down there. People love it down there. You guys should be commended. We appreciate the business that you have in town for us. So with that, does anyone have any other particular questions?
Just trying to, if I may,
Yeah,
Mr.
go
Chair,
right ahead.
just trying to understand how this works. So I take it you never put forward Mr. Devlin's management position? Because it does show Mr. Holloway as the last manager.
Yes, exactly. Mr. Devlin was never accepted by the ABCC. We did not continue through that application. And I had actually communicated with Mr. Farrell to say, look, I'm in limbo right now, but I'm going to transition. And I had thought that it was going to be Mr. Aida, but we weren't 100% sure. But I guess the very short answer is no, Mr. Devlin never took possession of the liquor license.
Okay, and so on the application where it says that you, Tony, is that you've been the manager since 2010, but that's not of the Holloway's part of it, that's of the,
Black Swan Country Club,
okay. So, and now you be the manager
Yeah.
of the license also?
correct.
Okay. And just so as you know, as Jill knows, I usually vote no on this because of the golf cart thing. Now, if I can bring that up, Mike, did you ever get any follow-up with me? For the rest of the board, I do feel I probably would never hold up their license, but I don't feel it correct that the ABC says that their golf cart license has to run the same as the rest of the club. I've talked to the chief, he says they haven't had any complaints in that, which is great to hear, but I also followed up on the state level with State Senator Tarr's office, and he told me that we could possibly have a bylaw, a town bylaw, which would stipulate the hours that the town wanted, and I'd asked Mike to check into that with Copeland and Page. Did
I
you?
don't have an answer for you.
So I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. I mean, I'm bringing it up now because it affects my vote. If I felt that the rest of the board perhaps wanted to at some point move forward to see if we could do a bylaw on the hours of the cart, if that's the legal way to go, that would at least make me feel better on how I vote and perhaps vote in favor of it. I mean, it's good to hear that there's never been no complaints in that over there, but still, it just seems insane. Probably the wrong word, but it just doesn't seem right to give a golf cart license the same hours as what you would give inside the club. And
We don't operate at those same hours.
no, I understand that, but that's just sort of an agreement that you have, but the state says that golf cart license has the same hours as the rest of the club, and I just disagree with that.
Well, Gary, if you're that passionate about it and you really want to look into it, please follow with Mike and we'll see. This is not directed at the club. This is directed
it's-
at the
it's-
state
Forcing
enforcing us.
Agreed.
And
I would-
it's a principle.
that's
It's
why I've been
nothing to
saying
do
this.
with.
I know we monitor it quite.
You
Yeah.
guys are in great standing with us.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with it. It actually has to do with state versus local jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, I was on record right from the beginning that I was against early hours on the golf cart too, especially on a Sunday. And I got kind of laughed at when I remember going back maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I think I was one that laughed
You
at
won,
you.
yeah. I guess golfers can't golf unless they loosen up a little bit.
You saw me-
7 o'clock in the morning.
You saw me yesterday.
Yeah, well, I never loosened up at all. Anyway, tell by my score. But so my point is, I'm with Gary on this. But we were told that it's one license, one property, and I don't know how we're ever going to get around that unless a bylaw can supersede the state's thing. But I'm with Gary on it. I think there should be a separate license for the golf cart. Not that you've done anything wrong. It's just my personal feeling about it. So.
Well, I think that's a separate conversation for a separate evening. I think we just really need to focus.
I do think it is, and
We need to focus on what's in
it
front
does
of us.
affect I just wanted to be clear as to why I vote the way I do, and it's really, as Phil cleared up, it's not really against the club, it's more against the state.
Is there anyone in the audience that has any comment or questions? Okay. If I get a motion from someone on the board, that'd be great.
I just blanked out my whole thing here, but so much for electronics. Go back to the paper. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept an application for licensee name, or is it, excuse me,
Change of manager.
change of manager at the Ribos Bistro 2 to Anthony Aida. Just want to make sure I got it right. Yeah, Anthony F. Aida, as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
And one nay. Okay. Good luck, keep up the good work down there.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
I know.
See you, Tony. Take care.
Okay, moving right along here. So, we have a discussion with, our police chief, health agents, Park and Rec, and anyone else that's come here tonight to discuss the American Legion Park, challenges that we're having down there. So, let's first get a status update, and if we could do that from our police, that would be great. If you gentlemen wanna come up here? I think we're just trying to get a sense of what the current state is today, and then we can talk about what the future state might look like and start those conversations. But gentlemen, first of all, good evening. As you started to say, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So what's going on down there?
Well, I think it would be best to start with a little historical perspective. And I think we should open the discussion with all the great things that the Park and Rec have done in the last 10 or 15 years that I've seen growing up here in Georgetown. It's a phenomenal piece of property, and the time that people have put in, volunteer, I can't even imagine the hours and how great it looks. And I think the lieutenant would agree with me that when we have received the calls that we've received concerning the use of the beach, the use of the recreational facility, we know that there are challenges with regard to property, boundaries and so forth, and Jim can elaborate on how that is divided up. It goes back to 1946. I know myself and Mr. Dawes have toured the property, but starting in 1985, when I got on the police department, there's been signage and so forth down there relative to a bylaw that does exist in Georgetown, Chapter 550. And it's a park and beach regulation, as everybody has seen. And there are several sections in here, actually 11 in total. With regard to enforcement, though, there is only one section that allows the police to definitively enforce any type of bylaw language in this particular chapter, and that's when the beach is closed, or the recreational facility is closed. There's an actual disposition, and it gives the police legislative power to deal with the closure of the beach. But with the improvements, there's been some confusion with that, because the beach is supposed to close at dusk, but there are ball games. There are lights down there. People can watch a ball game, play in the playground. It can be dark out.
Right.
So there are some issues concerning how that property is being used. But the biggest issue is that in Chapter 1 of 550, it says that the beach, tennis courts, playground, and all park facilities are for Georgetown residents and their accompanied guests only. That's it. So there's no legislative ability to enforce that on the police side.
Yep.
The only statute we can enforce is it says the park closes at dusk, and those present in the park after dark are subject to be charged with trespassing, which is a criminal action, and a $50 fine, which is a civil fine. So, with that being said, the Park and Rec, they did post the property appropriately, because the bylaw says that it's for Georgetown residents only. I had some conversations with Rich, who's the property supervisor, so to speak. I don't know his exact title, but I go down there daily and we speak. And when I went down with the last posting of the signs, there were signs that said Georgetown residents only, police take notice. Well, the police can't take notice if there's no legislative authority for the police to take notice on. And we've been challenged with it by people. My office has been inundated with phone calls. Is the park, is the beach public? Is it a public, is there public access? As early as 2014, when it was presented to the town administrator, he received a legal opinion on that. I'll let him address the legal opinion. concerning that. What we do is our job is to maintain the peace. And have we responded down there for calls for service? Absolutely. We spend a lot of time down there during the day, and Rich can attest that we've been down there. I've sent the lieutenant down there. It's very quiet. Are there people down there who are not Georgetown residents? I don't know. I've instructed the officers not to address where people live unless there's a problem. Because constitutionally, if it's a public place, the police have no right to ask you whether you're a Georgetown resident or not. Just envision that being in another community, and you have uniformed officers coming up to you asking you where you live. We just don't have that legislation in place in Georgetown. Now, the bylaw also, Section 2, says there's a beach sticker that's required. Again, required by who, for what? There's nothing here. It just says a beach sticker is required in order to park at the American Legion Park and to participate in programs offered by the Park and Rec, unless waived. But there's no legislation that says if you don't have a beach sticker, what's the violation? So these are the things that we're coming upon. This chapter and section was made probably with the mindset of it being just for Georgetown residents, but we just don't have any enforcement authority on the police end. Other communities have dealt with it and experienced it, and there are associations, there are payments, there are private beaches in Boxford. There's an association run by the Park and Rec in Topsfield. Hood's Pond, Styles Pond in Boxford is run by the Athletic Association. It's private for residents only. So there are a myriad of designs with regard to public property. And our plight has been with the Park and Rec and with the town of Georgetown as our town fathers to either enact legislation that would allow for us to move forward with this, with some type of bylaw change. And as we all know, bylaw is town meeting. There are public hearings, and then there's the approval and vetting after that vote with the Attorney General's office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the town of Georgetown, just this year, I was able to get a pooper scooper law. It's 2015, and we finally just got one. And I've done that with, since I've taken over, we've done it with civil fingerprinting, we've done it with ice cream vendors and solicitation, and there's just been a lot of legislative changes. And Georgetown has grown extremely fast. We have another park and rec facility going in on East Main Street. I was down there the other day. That too will be a very large facility. We'll have trespass, egress issues there we need to deal with. So we need to get our hands around this. It's taken to social media. That's why a lot of the parents are here tonight. I won't vet this particular issue on social media, so you won't see me on Facebook talking about our park problem. But this is where it belongs. It belongs with our legislative powers to be here in Georgetown, as well as our committees and commissions who volunteer countless hours to make this place what it is today. And one of my friends just told me that they've got some new programs down there, and they're already starting some vandalism issues down there, so I'm going to work with her so that their efforts are not for nothing. But with regard to this resident issue, if someone can find me the bylaw, or someone can find me the legislative teeth to restrict a public place that's been there since 1946, I'll do it. But I'm going to turn it over with regard to the legal opinion from town council, because when we hit the crossroads last year with this, it was determined that a park is a public place for everybody. And ancillary issues are pets. There are no dog postings down there, but there's new legislation in 2011 and 2013 pursuant to service animals. We have to deal with that. There is the conflicting use concerning the lights. There are permits. There's a permit online that people can use that particular facility through the Park and Rec and with the Board of Selectmen and my signature. I've never signed one, so I don't know if that is in place just because of the alcohol requirement, but that's another thing that the boards have to come together and fix this problem. So if I can, just ask Mr. Farrell to elaborate on that legal opinion and how that was brought about and requested, that we do not have the ability to enforce that.
So before we do that, because I do want to hear from Mike, and we actually have Attorney Riley here tonight. Mr. Brian, thanks for coming tonight from Copeland and Page to help us as well. So fixing the bylaw and the regulations, that's the easy part. It's what we want to do. It's the hard
Mhm.
part, right? So help me understand what the calls you're getting down there. And maybe after, I'd like to hear from the audience. I just want to get a sense, what's the problem? Forget if they're Georgetown residents or not. Just
Well,
what are the issues?
That's
that
the
we're-
primary problem, that the calls I'm receiving. Of course, we get calls for unruly behavior. We actually had an arrest down there 2 Saturdays ago. There was a group of folks down there that got into a verbal confrontation with one another. Got contentious on the police end, but nonetheless, we arrested a party who had a warrant for their arrest down there. That's public record. They did not live in Georgetown. But the majority of the calls are about people who are there that are believed not to be Georgetown residents, and they don't belong there because of this bylaw. And I'm trying to tell them that it's just not enforceable from the police side.
Okay, so it's not an issue of overcrowding. I'm not hearing that. It's not an issue of.
Not that I've been made aware of concerning overcrowding.
Right. It's not. I don't hear many issues over, public lewd behavior, drinking, or anything like that in terms of
Sometimes.
trends.
But-
right?
but not-
Yeah, it's going to happen anyway, right?
Right.
There very little, but some vandalism's going on down there,
Yes.
right? Are there? There are parking issues in terms of cars' capacity down there during the day.
Well, the complication with the parking is such, and Jim can elaborate on the park and rec and the boundary lines, is that the parking lot where the telephone poles are, that's a public way. Although they're deemed private ways, by right of licensee and invitee, they are public ways. People have a right of licensee and operation as invitees in that area. So that public way, we've actually had to go to court on enforcement issues that we've had relative to how that's configured down there. That plays a part into the access to the park. It plays a part into where people can and cannot park. There's no legislation concerning parking on those. You can park on a public way, so long as it's not posted, no parking. So can people park outside that area? They could, and they do during concerts and things like that.
But generally speaking, it's not.
But generally speaking, I have not had an overwhelming call volume concerning parking, if that's the question.
Great.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to hear from anyone in the audience that has been down there and has had any challenges, issues, or anything. Is there anyone that would like to share any of their experiences down there? Sir, if you wouldn't mind just giving us your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Richard Whitehouse, I work for the Park and Rec Commission.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
I've been here for 14 seasons. She's been down several times. They're getting a lot of complaints. There's nothing they can do about it. But in my years of experience, there's 15, 20 people. There's no issues during the week. There's no parking problems. There are some out of towners. The average people are mothers with 3, 4, 5-year-old children.
Mhm.
Now this is during the week. I'm not there on the weekends. I'm not there during the evening. I think some of the issues, Jen also works down there, is in the evenings and on the weekends. These people that are doing these things, it's only individuals. It's not the majority of the people. Past experience, I've caught people, the police department down, they rectified the problem. The problem was solved. We found those individuals. But overall, it's a fantastic facility and park. People love it. They enjoy it. Most people clean up every day. They have pickets. They use the barrels. So I have no complaints about that. I understand the chief's problem. The law's not in place for them to enforce things.
Right.
So it's a great big can of worms. Is what I want to say, okay?
This is a more piece of property that's
Thank
more
you.
complicated than it looks on paper, put it that way. Yes, if you wouldn't.
Sure.
mind.
Tamara Schofield. I live at 5 Bartlett.
Hey, Tamara.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
I live in the neighborhood that abuts the park, and I have young children that have used it. We've been in that neighborhood 5 or 6 years now. And while there is a private beach to our neighborhood, the kids do like to go over and use the public beach because there are more kids there and it's just more fun. And over the years, again, it's only been 5 or 6 years that we've been there, but we've certainly seen a degradation of the use of the property. So whether it's out of town folks or Georgetown folks, it really doesn't matter. What it comes down to, I think, is just the abuse of the property. So if you've got a large family or a large group that's having a party there, and we've seen it, and I think Janet can attest to it, You know, they've got large groups there, they're overflowing the bins, they really don't care that they're throwing additional trash onto the ground. The bathrooms are a mess. I've seen children down there running around and playing in the water with completely full diapers. They have no business in the water. You name it. And again, as Rich says, these can be incidences, maybe you see them once a month, but whatever the case is, I think that publicly, and like the chief said, we see on social media this growing concern among people in town, because it is a growing problem. And I think that the biggest problem that folks here in town have is that our law enforcement doesn't have a way to deal with it, should it become something that really needs to be dealt with. The whole question mark over residents versus non-residents and stickers and where do you get them and are we going to institute that, I think that's all discussion to be had, but it's certainly a growing problem, and we've seen it. Again, my family's only been there 5 or 6 years, and we've seen a change certainly in the last 3 that's noticeable. And I've said this to the police as well. I went down and met with them. I'm not an alarmist type, but I do think forward. And I think about what is the absolute potential worst situation that could happen in that neighborhood or in any of the neighborhoods that surround that park on a day when there is a group there that gets into an altercation. You know, what is the worst situation in a neighborhood when you have someone who's maybe fleeing from the police because they know they're on their way down and they know they have a warrant out for their arrest? Where does the situation go from there, and how does it escalate? The fear, I think, among those residents that really abut the park immediately is that someday, somehow, that escalation is going to come. So we need to have something in place to be able to squash this now before it becomes a bigger problem. So, you know.
Well, so there's a lawful issue there, obviously, and then there's a maintenance issue, right? So I'm not sure I want the police down there making sure that people are throwing their trash out or checking if people's diapers are.
Well, no, that's...
No, I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No.
I'm just trying to think of, you know.
I thought the same thing.
Chief, I see a diaper. Go check it, please.
No, again, I think
Please don't do that to
speaks to the overall abuse of the property. Folks that are there that don't care about it,
yes.
And because they're allowed to go there and use it free of charge or without any consequence,
Yep.
they will continue to abuse it because they can.
Right.
Is this mostly on the weekends? You see it?
It's a mixed bag. I
During
work
the
from
week?
home, so
Is there
I
any
will
day
tell
all
you
day?
that this summer I have not been there during the week as
Okay.
much as previous years. I
Okay.
was there someday last week, and it was peacefully quiet. It was really enjoyable.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jimmy, had your hand up first, and we'll get to you just after. Would you state your name and?
Jim Demento, 12 School Street, Chairman of the Park and Rec. This is a situation that's it's kind of good because 2 years ago no one would use the park. And now we have too many people using the park, and we recognize that we're going to have to probably go back to a sticker of some type. One thing the sticker does that gives buy-in, you tell someone, hey, put the diaper in the trash, and they tell you, you know, go pound sand, you can say, well, I'm pulling your beach sticker. And that gives them they have some reason that they're trying to protect something. It goes a long way as far as maintenance because these people know, they just say, you know, pound sand, and they come back the next day, and they're going to stay there until, you know. So we're trying to institute, possibly, we talked to the park director about instituting a sticker. The problem is the parking lot is not the place because it's now on the Rails Trail Committee as an accessible use to use the Rails Trail. Dick Paganelli and his group put that on the state map, so we now have to issue a beach permit that someone would have to have on the beach. So you'd have something around your neck and you'd have to have that at present. So we're gonna have to redivide the property, so it would no longer be a sticker on a car, it would be a sticker that someone would have on their person. Because technically, they can go down there, they can park in the parking lot, and there's nothing we can do. But if we issue a sticker for everybody, town residents, non-town residents, and give it a certain value, and it has to be the same for both town residents and non-town residents, and we go down and say, you have your beach use sticker for these, you know, and if they don't, then you can tell them to leave, or if there's a problem, you can tell them to leave and you can pull their sticker. It's the only way I see this becoming a viable option where we get some enforcement, because unless they're paying something, they're just gonna do what they want.
I think just table that, because before we talk about solutions, I just want to make sure I'm understanding all the issues here. Miss, you had a comment or a question?
I'm Victoria Roberts. I'm on 102 Pond Street. I just want to say I am so appreciative of the resource in town. My husband and I and my kids moved to town about a year ago, and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 young kids, so we're there at least once or twice a week. We go there on the weekends as well. We see you there all the time. We're really appreciative of how nice it looks all the time. The issues that I've seen recently are mostly, regardless of whether people are in town or out of town, I could care less where they're coming from. As a mom who's home with my kids all day, I frequent other parks and other towns, and I would hate to see our town's resources shut down to people to come in and use them and appreciate them, because I do that in other people's towns that are open to me. But the issues I see there are like behavioral issues that I feel like there's, like the officer has said, that there's no teeth to enforce them. I see people that are smoking all the time. I see people standing in the water fishing, like right off the beach, and throwing cigarette butts like one after the other into the water. And I've looked around and there's really no signs that say no smoking anywhere. And I know that there is some rules posted on the beach, but I feel like I can't say something to someone because there's no like call this number if you see an issue, or there are no smoking signs. It seems like that should be common sense to somebody, not to throw butts all over the beach where there's kids everywhere. But if there's going to be future discussions as to how to control this, whether it's a permit, but even in the meantime, something like call this number, whether it's a park and rec number, or I know their police can't really do much in terms of maybe enforcing some of the rules that are there right now, but somebody to kind of back up local residents, speaking out about what they're seeing, saying, hey, you really shouldn't throw that cigarette butt in the water, or you shouldn't have your kids running around with poop and oh my goodness, I see that all the time. But
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Mike, so it sounds like what's possible for us, we need to get some definition on in terms of what we like to do. Jim, you mentioned a sticker permit or something, some type of a license and stuff like that. But hold your thoughts on that. I just want to get by definition, I guess, is the property down there considered a park, a beach, or anything else I'm not thinking about? And if so, what does that mean we can and can't do? I guess that's the question. And then how does thank God our attorney's here. How does that parking lot granted for the rail trail also impact this? And then there's the public way. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider here, what we can and cannot do. Or maybe you can shed some light.
Well, you're right, and this is why I suggest that Attorney Riley attend tonight to give us some guidance in those areas, what is allowable, what is possible. So I'd like to flip that round of questioning over to Attorney
All right.
Riley.
Mr. Riley, if you wouldn't mind, if you have a seat right up, you can join us. So for the record, you just state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Brian Riley. I live in Natick, but I work for Copeland and Page, the town's attorney.
Excellent.
And glad to see you all tonight.
Yeah, thanks. You're hopefully gonna help us like that, right?
Well, I'll see what I can do.
All right.
I guess the first point that I would make is I did look at Chapter 550, and according to the town code, those are regulations adopted by the Park and Recreation Commission, which means they are somewhat different than a bylaw. And that might be one thing that you want to consider, is try to get, town meeting to adopt this as a bylaw, leaving aside the residents only for a second. I don't see any other issue with any other provisions as far as could it be a valid bylaw. And then you could have, violation of any portion of this bylaw subject to a $50 fine, something like that. And I know there's going to be staffing issues and how you monitor that. But that might be one thing which is good. The residents only part, I agree with what the chief said, and just a couple words about why that's so complicated and difficult to do is it really is at least from what I've seen from the courts, there's really not a governing case in Massachusetts, but other places, it's a First Amendment issue, which sort of sounds silly. That's why people hate lawyers, but.
We just don't hate you.
Public parks, town commons, public sidewalks even, all within reason are sort of traditional public areas where you can exercise your free speech rights. So if somebody was at the American Legion Park and again within reason wanted to get up on a soapbox and complain about the federal government, they can do that. That's what the First Amendment says you can do. And so one case in particular I found in Connecticut, they passed a residence only in a park and someone sued them, went all the way to the state Supreme Court. And that was the basis of the decision. They said, people have a right to go into this kind of area, public parks or, open areas that have traditionally been open to the public. And express themselves, whatever that might mean. And so if you are saying, well, this public area, which has been public for 200 years, is now for residents of this town only, the court may well say that that violates the First Amendment. And another problem, sort of worst case scenario, is if you do get someone or a group challenging that and saying that this town is violating constitutional rights, you can go to federal court and get your attorney's fees as the plaintiff, which usually is a lot worse than whatever the damages might be. So it is problematic. I haven't been told by the Attorney General's office that, well, if we saw this in a bylaw, we would have to throw it out. But I think it might be difficult to get through for those issues. We could certainly, work with them and see how much leeway there might be. Let's see. One thing that occurred to me, because I do understand that the stickers haven't been used lately, parking stickers, I think there's a lot of towns on Cape Cod that make their residents-only beach. That's how they do it. They've got a parking lot and you can't park there unless you have a resident sticker, which you paid for. And anybody else who wants to go to that beach, at least my assumption is that they could do that, but they might have to park a mile down the road in a legal place and walk in, which could be the same sort of thing here. So, if there were boisterous groups who were showing up and monopolizing the parking lot, perhaps that's one way to deal with that. I don't know offhand how the rail trail issue is going to factor into that. We may have to look at that.
And the public way as well.
Yeah.
Now, let me just
Sure.
pause you for 1 second. So I know there have been expressions of some folks who are really adamant about the money that we've invested is our tax dollars, and we would prefer to have a Georgetown residents only down there. I won't speak for my board, but I'm not interested in limiting just Georgetown residents down there, myself, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. I think if the problems aren't solved, that's something to consider down the road right now. But our folks are just in town can be just as destructive down there as any other town as well. But thank you for sharing. I think that it is important for us to understand what can and can't be done versus what we want to do down there. Jim, just hold on. You wanted to keep going?
Let's see.
I think, Attorney,
that's all.
if I could just
Yeah.
add one thing. When the attorney spoke about the First Amendment, I think we all know the sensitivity of policing today in America and the ability for police departments to act accordingly, especially in public areas. My officers are trained to do that, and when this residency issue cropped up a couple of years ago, it was very important that we have a full understanding of how that works, engagement with the police and the public, and especially in a public place when there's been no articulable facts concerning someone who's done something wrong, a threshold inquiry, probable cause, and all those police terms that officers need to use to engage with somebody in the public in a public place. Right. And to answer your original question, the premise of why this was brought forward was I know there are some ancillary issues concerning maybe some conduct of some folks who are at the park, youth and adult alike.
Yep.
But the primary concern was the question of whether this park is designed for Georgetown residents only or not.
Mhm.
And that's what this whole issue was formed around with regard to the signage that was down there. It was interesting, and I had this conversation with Jim. Jim and I have known each other since we were kids because we grew up here in Georgetown. And, you know, his dad was fundamental in getting that park where it is today, and Jim's taken that over. And I said to him, I said, the most important sign down there about the park being closed and the police having authority is the least posted sign there. The only sign that has statutory authority for the police to do something about is one small old rusty sign that was there when I was a kid. And that's the one that should be posted everywhere. So I wanted to reverse their thinking in using the current bylaw and regulation in place because of the trespass. Trespass gives a criminality, it gives the police some authority. So those are the steps we can take with what we have today, and looking at solutions, as you said, the solutions, short-term or long-term. We need to look at potential associations, like the attorney spoke about down the Cape, which other communities use, not limiting the use of park to just Georgetown residents, but an association where there is funding brought forward to support the park itself, and not just have our volunteers, you know, working their lives away down there for nothing. And those are the things we need to look at. The sticker program, I agree with its premise, its enforceability. Just like the attorney said, we have people pushing carriages into the park and using it. They're parking downtown. Our own residents do that. You can't delineate who's at the park, who shouldn't be there. If that's a parking issue, that's what the stickers would do. And there's enforcement with that with a bylaw, where a police officer could write a citation if they're, a parking ticket, if in fact there's no sticker. That doesn't solve the attendance issue, it just solves the parking problem. So those are the things we need to look at.
Jim?
So we have a park, if we took a section of it, say the tennis court, the ball field, and the beach, and said during the months of June and July, that is a $25 permit section of the park. You have to be permit. The playground you can use the bathrooms, you can use the parking area. But if you're in that area, you gotta have a summer permit. Is that, and as long as it's the same for Georgetown residents, anybody in this town, anybody in the surrounding towns can get that. Is that cause I know in Andover they did something like that, but they had a difference between out of town and in town, which was proven illegal. But if it's the same price, would that be a viable option to make? Because what my thing is, if someone has something invested, when you tell them, hey, your kid's got a wise mouth, you really should, they know that they have the chance to pull that $25 permit. It goes a long way for getting people to cooperate.
I think in general, I think that would be legal. You know, the town, just sort of as a general issue, anytime the town provides a service, it can charge a fee. It's not supposed to be so high that it becomes a money-making operation, but at least, you know, covering costs, you know, upkeep of the tennis courts, upkeep of the ball fields, whatever it might be. So I think as a general premise, you could do something like that. It's the, you know, the grassy areas and picnic tables where I think you wouldn't want to try to do that.
Right, I mean, my thought would be to keep because people with playgrounds, my kids would go to different playgrounds. It's open, and it's only for those 2 months when it's a highly used time in the summer. I'm just using that, throwing that. I'm not saying it's just one of the options out there.
So only pause, and I wanted to give the chance for our board here to comment or ask any questions that you guys may have.
I'll just give you a general comment. I'm getting a lot of calls and a lot of concerns from residents, not just around the idea of residents only, it's what's going on down at the park. Phil and I, we seen it firsthand about not last summer, the summer before. That's when I started talking to the chief and Jim about it. I mean, we almost had a full-scale riot between a bunch of softball players and a bunch of people that were there, obviously drinking all day, throwing trash all over the place, and a ball went over the fence. Somebody hit a home run, and they went ballistic.
It wasn't us.
It wasn't us.
They were.
We're wanting track power at best. But anyway, so we had to get in the middle of it and say, hey, look, told the softball players go back on the field, and we asked those other guys, to go back on the picnic area. And then I kind of did a little bit of, hey, we're both a little bit overreacted. Why don't we just cool it down? And it's getting late now. Why don't we pack it in anyway? And everybody left. So the point is, and not only that, I mean, Janet, calls about the trash being all over the place. And it seems to me, I'm there a lot at night for the softball games, and generally it's pretty, it's pretty quiet, it's not too bad. It's some of the weekends, where people are there, and it's hot out, and people are drinking, and hiding it really well, and I'm not, no offense to the police aren't doing their job, but they do a good job of getting, pretty lit up down there, and, I've had some complaints about adults on the new equipment we just all put in, so I don't know what the full-scale solution is other than, I don't even know if a sticker program is gonna help, but the calls, the emails, people are really upset that, we spend all this money and, whether it's a Georgetown resident or not, it's being trashed. And that's the epicenter of this whole thing is that, a lot of people are upset about it. And that's good, that's a good thing, that people really take pride in their town and that park. So, we have to do something down there. If that's, putting some money aside in the budget for additional policing, to have a police officer there on the weekend, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but something needs to be done.
Well, my budget has 2 officers on duty around the clock. And on the weekends, that's the busiest time for us. And, I have hot spots that they're traveling and they're doing the best they can. And I think that as this town has gotten busier, and I've said it before the board, that there may be times where I need to assign officers to specific locations and be proactive at the beach, at the parks. I mean, I get calls at West Street all the time because that's another very large open area that's free to vandalize, especially since our watershed sits out there. So these are the challenges, and as we continue to grow, right now the new Pembroke School, there's a great playground back there. It's being utilized by people. There are people who are very concerned that people from out of town are using that playground for the $46 million school we just built. And again, it's a public place. And these are the growing pains that we're feeling. Immediacy concerning the park. Let's get someone down there. I'll assign an officer down there. I'll find the money. I'll put someone down there during the busy times. The lieutenant is very good at squeaking that schedule to save as much money as we can to get another officer down there. We'll do it, and we'll monitor the activity. What I see during the day, though, and like my friend Rich said, because I'm down there all the time with him, is clearly that's not the issue or the time, but there may be some conduct issues down there that aren't really police issues. Vandalism is my problem. Conduct that's criminal is my problem. Kids yelling and swearing on swings, I don't know if I can deal with that. I don't know how I can get my hands around that. No pun intended, but I think that can be the first step for us on the police side. The second step is we need to take some legislative action, as the attorney had suggested, and as I suggested 5 years ago, and at least have some teeth to some bylaws concerning conduct down there, and get it before the Attorney General's office, and they approve it after our vetting process of town meeting and the public hearing. The public is gonna decide ultimately what they want. And I work for the public, and if that's what they want for the enforcement of that area, I'll do it. I'll gladly do it. I live here too. I want that place to be what everybody wants it to be, and I want it to be as safe as possible. The other day, I take my Saturday morning bike rides to try and determine, no one knows who I am out there with my helmet and sunglasses on, so I get to spy on our locations. And I had somebody with 2 full-grown German Shepherds training dogs on the athletic turf field. So I did a head spin, I turned around, and the person said to me, well, it's the only place in Georgetown that's fenced in where I can train my dogs. So that's what we're dealing with. Now, it says no dogs allowed, but there's no legislation for me. I found something, don't worry about that. The dogs didn't stay, but those are the things we're dealing with, and those are the things we need to either, I hate to say it, put a committee together, but I've said it before, a committee can be the paid employees of our community. The people that are already here, not more volunteers, the people that you pay already to get together, police, board of health, highway, and the like, working with the town administrator to create some type of legislation to bring forth to town meeting so that you give police the authority, the Park and Rec needs authority as they do with their regulations, tighten up some of the rules concerning the permitting process so that we're all on the same page, all of the committees, all of the commissions are on board, so that we then can move forward and really take control of the problem so that it just doesn't continue to grow as Ms. Schofield said.
Hold on, one second, Jim. Doug, or Gary, anything you guys wanna, before we open up?
If,
Go ahead, Gary, the
Okay.
senior.
just a few questions for, I'll put this one to the Park and Rec, and that's on the ball field. Is that used mostly by Georgetown residents, or do like, Little
Mostly
League?
by Georgetown residents, yes.
Okay, it's not like soccer where other towns are coming in and.
I mean, there's a game with a town resident and an out-of-town resident, but it's never two out-of-town residents. It's in a town baseball team and an out-of-town baseball team.
So there are out-of-town baseball teams that do
Yes.
come to play there, so that's, that could be an issue with a parking sticker
Sure.
program. Now, smoking came up, do we have a bylaw with a fine, or does the state have anything on smoking in public? Even the state
Reason-
doesn't?
Well, when you have a private facility, I'd let the attorney elaborate on it, when there's no smoking in a private building, it's because they own the building. If someone were smoking down the beach and there's a regulation that says no smoking, what's the penalty? It just says there's no smoking.
But I thought, yeah, the attorney, isn't it a state law, no smoking in public places? Does the state have a fine that goes with
I
that?
don't think that applies to
No, it
a
doesn't.
place like a park.
But so
no.
we could put that into a
Yes.
bylaw?
That's that legislative
Yes, you could
review,
put
I'd
it
like
in
to
a
say, in our
bylaw.
bylaw
Yes.
program. And
Yes.
the attorney's absolutely right. This is great. I've known
No,
about this for forever. But the thing is, though, is it needs to be elaborated on.
That's as you, yes, as you said. Now, and I know I've been there, not this summer, but in the past for the concerts, and I will say that parking lot is full and people are driving away. And so, let's say to this and to the trails parking, I'm thinking on a sticker program. You're thinking on a personal one. I'm still thinking on a sticker program. Could you, if you were having a concert, perhaps hand out passes? Perhaps who's running that concert could hand out a day pass. I do know in Gloucester, may not still be in effect, but years ago, I spent a couple nights in Gloucester on vacation, and they had a very interesting thing, that the hotel gave me a day pass that, by staying there, that made me a resident for the day, which allowed me to use any of the Gloucester parking facilities. And perhaps a rail trail could do something of that sort also.
You could also avoid that, the enforcement during the concert series. My concern is the rails trail with this new thing that actually wasn't approved by the Selectmen or by the Park and Rec. Neither of us were actually, our opinion was actually asked on the rails trail, putting the parking lot as part of the rails trail access points.
And then just one more thing, Phil, if I may.
Of course.
And this would be to Brian. Now, if we were to go over this regardless of who led the thing on the bylaw, whether it be Park and Rec or Selectmen or a committee, we would obviously have to work with Copeland and Page, and I guess if the state rejects one part of that, does that reject the whole thing, or would the state perhaps just say, well,
Well, they
we don't-
amended on the floor.
In general, the Attorney General gets it in whatever town meeting passed.
yes,
And if there's 15 different sections and they don't like one, they find one is inconsistent with the state law or something, they can just strike that one
oh, okay,
and approve the rest.
okay, well, that's good to know.
Doug?
Well, my biggest concern is that, because I don't think there's an issue of whether this is a residence only or not. Because I had read a letter from Copman and Page from March of 2014 that stated some case law, and stating that lands that were acquired by a municipality for the purposes of a park, which this was for the betterment of the public at large. So I would want to make sure that whatever we do, I think a committee should be formed to take care of the ambiguities in the, Chapter 550. So this, because to say it closes at dark
Dusk,
or dusk, but because it doesn't, because we have lights.
And I think probably the most difficult part for the enforcement avenue is the conflicting use. This rail trail situation has put
Right.
another dynamic into the property. There's public access through Bartlett Drive in Flint. So there's, you just have to make sure that, that we take the total encompassing of the operation. The American Legion Park, and Jim clarified for me, it's the American Legion Park and Recreational Facility. And there are two different things with the lot lines and so forth as to how this thing was created in 1946 and then again in the 60s. So I think that for immediacy, I'd like to see us form it as soon as possible. We talked about it last summer. We're here this summer. This summer's got 5 minutes left in it, right? We all know that. So we have the entire winter to work on it so that when we come out in the spring, and I know that fall town meeting is a bad word at times, but maybe we could use fall town meeting to get some bylaw changes so that we can be ready in the spring. And I can assure some additional enforcement down there. I'm not doing diapers. Someone else is going to have to help me with that. But I will certainly, vandalism is important to me, conduct's important to me, illegal drinking is important to me, because it's important to our residents, and that's why they pay me.
Well,
Go ahead, Dick.
I make two quick comments, Al. One is, we are gonna get a dog park. It's been designed in phase 3 of the East Main Street, so people who are listening, who are using the American Legion baseball field and the soccer field, you really shouldn't be doing that, because that's really bad for both. And it was one other point I wanted to make, I lost my mind on that one, but I just want people to know that it is in phase 3, so we are looking to get a dog park, because it's on, a lot of people on Facebook are asking for that.
all right, so could I finish?
Sure.
So, I believe, because Chief Cudmore and I talked for a while, we looked at the facilities, and he pointed out where he has no teeth. So we need to establish some types of rules or regulations. If it's to establish an honest to by God bylaw, then we need to do that. And, but I just want to make sure that when we talk about sticker programs and all this, I live in the same neighborhood as Mrs. Schofield. We've lived there for 30 years. We were always under the impression it was a residents-only park until I became aware of this law. And the only reason we thought it was because there was a sign there that said so. But people have been using American Legion Park from all over. I mean, I go to other communities and I use their parks. And, there's no issue. So I just want to make sure the sticker program, if it was paid, could prevent some of our very own residents that don't have the wherewithal to use the park. So we have to be very careful of how we go about that. Now, to have a sticker to go into, maybe we could hire some people during the summer, because when it was a sticker before, we used it to pay lifeguards. If there's an issue with trash barrels on the weekend overflowing, well, there are no park people there to change the bags in the barrels. Now, I'm not saying, people have a tendency to throw stuff around anyhow. But as long as...
I do that, Doug.
Pardon?
On the weekends, I do that.
Oh,
on the
you do,
weekends.
Jan?
It's me.
Well, thank you.
Nice.
So anyhow, I just want to make sure we do this right, and that we're not restricting the use of a great amenity that we have that maybe other people don't have in their communities, and they find it and they use it. As long as people act civilly and responsibly, then that's fine. But that's where I think we are, but we do need to have a committee to come up with these types of solutions. Thank you.
All right, last comment, and then we're gonna close this up, because we've got some other business. Go ahead, Gary.
Just to add to that going forward, and I want to ask the attorney, that's chapter 550, park and beach regulations, if that's just to American Legion Beach and the park down there, because we've mentioned several other things here. West Street, Jim mentioned, we've got the new park going along, so whoever is on this committee, we may want to broaden a lot of these things. We don't want to open up the West Street facility, East Main Street, and say, gee whiz, We got nothing.
I've been calling it East Main Street Recreational Facility. That's the way it's
So
been
you're
called.
saying you feel that that would be covered under this five?
No, it's a question, that is a question for legal, but it has never been
Okay,
called a park.
so, and that's a question, I guess, for the attorney, not, and the committees.
I'd already asked that that be included,
Okay.
because in looking at our master plan, not the master plan of the town of Georgetown, but our master plan and recreational and the like, that we need to make sure that whatever bylaws we create, that we include our future,
Yes.
the rail trail, the parking areas,
Right.
East Main Street, West Street, and maybe
Schools.
something else. Well, the schools are a different animal. I have to work with the school department concerning the schools. We have conflicting use with the fields. Some people don't want dogs on the fields, but there's a sign on Pearlie that says clean up after your pet. So that tells me that you're welcome to do it, as long as you clean up after your pet. So I've had that battle, because there's nobody who has more sign rage than me. Because if the sign doesn't have any teeth, there's no sense in having the sign.
All right, so Dave, you have one last
quick
question?
question
Let's go.
for the attorney is, did you say that the town could adopt the state chapter, and that would give the Parks and Rec additional powers rather than having to do a bylaw? Is that,
No, I
that's what
think
I thought I heard, but maybe I'm wrong.
What I was trying to say was that Chapter 550 says it was adopted as regulations of the Park Commission.
Yeah.
Park and Rec, which they have authority to adopt regulations, but it doesn't give the police department, anything to do with it.
But within their regulation, can they stipulate, could they say, no smoking, if you get caught smoking, it's a $25 fine? Do they have the authority to do that rather than have to go to town meeting for an overall bylaw? Just based on the chapter that they've been established by, their charter?
I think with a lot of these things, I think a bylaw might be preferable, but did the town, I should know this, but I don't offhand, does the town have a non-criminal disposition?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so.
1997, sir, it was adopted.
Okay, so as long as a board or committee has authority to adopt regulations, they can put in a penalty, and non-criminal disposition can be used to write citations for not just bylaws, but regulations as well. So that might be something to.
So from a process
into, too.
perspective, maybe this committee could meet, and what comes out of that committee could go to Park and Rec, and they could adopt the suggestions, meaning just using the no smoking, there's no smoking in these boundaries. If you are caught smoking, you're asked to, you're removed from the park for 24 hours, and a citation of $25, whatever that works out to. They could come up with that based on their authority. We don't need to go to town meeting. They can adopt those by a quorum of their committee.
That's true. That may be one way to be a little more efficient. Yeah.
Right.
I do know Boston Common, I believe Boston Common, they established smoking areas because they couldn't make the common non-smoking.
Well, I think I'm just process,
But just
not
as,
specific.
those are the types of things that you find out.
Right.
Second phase would be enforcement, though. Who would be the enforcing authority in that particular regulation?
Well, that's
problem.
what I wanna know, under the criminal disposition, do the police, are they the only ones that can enforce those regulations?
Unless the regulations themselves could name somebody else.
Park
might be.
employees?
Dave Surface,
No.
see you with a ticket book out there.
I mean, a lot of non-criminal disposition bylaws say, the police can enforce any bylaw or regulation. The health agent can write citations for things under their umbrella, and on down the line. So yeah, you
So we
can
have
establish other enforcement
Empower the
persons.
commissioners to enforce the regulation?
I think you could. You might need to, I'd have to look at the non-criminal disposition bylaw. and see if
He's
that's-
getting nervous under the
My
power.
point was process. I don't think we have to go to town meeting with this. I think, based on what we've already adopted at town meeting and prior meetings, that the Park and Rec have the authority to put a plan in place.
So let me just,
But
two
that's why-
comments on that, and then we're gonna close this up. One is, I think that if Mike and our attorney and Chief Cudmore and whoever that we first, let's just have this, guys, just determine whether or not the regulations can be enforceable by, I mean, let's just make sure from a legal standpoint. And Mike, if you can help that out. Secondly, there's short-term things that I think we can do. If we have the ability for this committee that we put together, or the police, to actually enforce regulations as opposed to bylaws with teeth in them, as we're saying, and let's just get that done immediately.
Mhm.
The longer term, and what I do want to make sure is that we strongly consider going to town meeting for, is what we're gonna do at the park. I wanna know what the residents wanna do, in terms of if we do a sticker program, if we have to charge, if we don't charge, or how do we, so let's think about that.
Bylaw regulation is by far, and I think the attorney would agree with me, the strongest avenue that any legal opinion would give Mass Chiefs. Our attorneys have said, there's even Mass General Law on the books today, why I have to come to you for a bylaw. It's repetitive, but they want the local community to adopt the bylaw to reaffirm the MGL, the Mass General Law. So I would just caution, I mean, I don't know if we want civilians writing tickets to other civilians, because then the police eventually come anyways, because that's not gonna work out too well.
That wasn't my intent. I was
Yeah,
just trying to.
I know
process.
that, but-
I think they already have some
He
powers
wants a
in
ticket
place.
book, I'm
I don't-
telling you, that's what he wants.
I think they already have some authority.
I
They
agree with
could
you.
Initially, and grant the
police the authority.
the authority to put some teeth in something right away at their next meeting, if they really wanted to.
Okay.
Well, I would
So
leave that.
I just have,
Process again.
So guys, I'm gonna stop this, we're not gonna solve this tonight. We do need to find out legally what we're allowed to or not allowed to do, whether for enforcement. We can write the regulations and enforce those regulations as such. What I do wanna do is, I would like to have as you guys have all said, it does make sense to put together a committee or a subcommittee of folks, to meet on this. And I'd like to get that done ASAP. I mean, I think I need to get and make sure that the folks that we want to have on this committee are interested in serving on this committee and helping out, which I'm sure they are. I think that between us, we gotta figure out who we'd like to have on the committee, but maybe, Chief, if you could help in terms of working with Mike to make some quick suggestions on who you'd like to have, and reaching out to those individuals with Mike to make sure that they're willing to participate as well. And then, once that happens, let's assume in the next week or two, we can get this, at our next meeting, we vote and get this committee set for you, or subcommittee, that I would like to see a set of options, and pros and cons of what those options are. Are there costs involved? Are there who's gonna enforce those things? I mean, all the things that I know you guys are gonna ask, but I know there's no one single solution to what we're trying to do down there. So with the different components of the land, how it's deeded, the public way, the stuff like that, I mean, all those need obviously be taken into consideration. We discussed tonight, but that's what I'd like to see happen from here.
My last point is, he also has to know it's a great pond, it isn't, so it's under the jurisdiction of being a great pond.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah, it is, so,
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's what I forgot
Something
to
else
tell
to
you.
think about,
That's what I
yeah.
forgot to tell you, so that's
Right,
also.
okay.
Conservation Commission.
Okay, so, Jim, if you would, Don, if you would, just work with Mike and make a recommendation on who we'd like to have work with you on that committee. Then I think at our next meeting, if we can be prepared at our next meeting to appoint those individuals, to vote on and appoint those individuals. And then we can talk about the charter, what you guys wanna do, and what we hope to get back from that committee. All right?
Would they be
Chairman, could I get
professionals?
some clarity
Yeah.
from Attorney Riley? Chapter 550, those rules and regulations and not a bylaw?
It says that they're adopted by the Park and Recreation Commission,
Okay,
which
so
means
the
they're
rules and
regulations.
regulations.
Not to say they're,
Right.
useless, but a bylaw, the chief has said, bylaw has a lot more authority behind it. Yeah, and only town meeting can adopt a bylaw.
Okay, super. We good for the moment? I know we're not gonna settle this tonight, so.
No.
All right, gentlemen and ladies on the audience as well, thank you very much for coming and participating in the discussion. We've got some work to do. And if you're interested in supporting and helping in any way, talk to Jim Demento.
Whose number is?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Lieutenant Chief,
Thank
thanks
you
very
for
much.
coming.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Let's take a quick 5-minute recess. You guys, I need a vote to go into a motion. Recess.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess. Reset.
Chairman, may I process
over.
Okay, let's see, we need a vote to come back into recess,
So moved.
from recess, rather.
Second.
All those in
Aye.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, real quick, Harry Locatilia is gonna come up, and we're gonna give him a TV timeout commercial here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just something I would hope you'd bring up under something you couldn't anticipate. This is a little bit of something here. I'm looking for permission to hang this banner on the fence in front of Town Hall. I think I filled out the form. This is all about as you know, there are no concerts this year at the summer. So at the Park and Rec, people and some local musicians and myself got together. We were at the Park and Rec's Party in the Park, and we were bemoaning the fact that there are no concerts. And we said, well, why don't we put one together and at least have one concert this year? And Park and Rec liked the idea. We went before them, got a permit. That's all set. And basically, this is it. We have to hire somebody, so the Modern Woodmen were kind enough to sponsor the PA and the advertising, and it's August. It's not this Saturday. It's not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after.
Yep.
And the rain date's the next day, the Sunday. And there's going to be 5 bands there. There's going to be food, beverages. It's going to be the only concert this year. And well, somebody said there's only 5 minutes left to summer, so this might be the last summer.
17 Fridays till Christmas.
Don't. I'll cry. I'm picturing plows.
What's that date again, Harry?
August, the date, Gary, is August 22nd.
Thank you, I'll do my
It's
best.
Saturday, August 22nd.
All
It
right.
starts at 1 PM and goes till 6 PM.
Looking forward to it, Harry.
Great. May I, would it be okay if I hung it on the fence out there?
As long as you got the paperwork in to Janet, she'll be the one to tell you
Janet
that. or not.
decides that.
She'll tell you.
I'll just look, make sure, I don't think there's anything else, but I'll send this back to you tomorrow with dates to hang and take.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks.
All right.
Modern Woodman.
So, our next guest here this evening has been pretty patient. Kim, come on up.
Thank you.
All right. So, I'd like to introduce to the board here to Kim Wells from the Edward Collins Jr. Center for Public Management at UMass Boston. And you've been so kind to work with Mike and coming out here this evening as well. And what I have, I talked and shared some thoughts with Kim today, and this is what I hope to accomplish tonight, and you guys can certainly chime in here. But what I wanted to do was kind of give you just a sense in the public, a sense of, I guess, what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. Then maybe you can share with us, maybe some of the projects that you have done and what assistance you can give us. We'll then figure out a little bit of what level of engagement we're looking for as a board here, and I'll define a little bit more the scope of what we're looking for, if that's all right.
Perfect, yes.
All right, well, let me give you a sec to introduce yourself and what you do.
All right, so Kimberly Wells, I'm a government services specialist at the Collins Center at UMass Boston. So we are a state entity created by the legislature that is designed to provide services to municipal governments. So those services range from things like this, strategic plans and capital improvement plans and economic development plans, to things like working with municipalities on a monthly basis for data and performance management, setting goals, measures, figuring out, how we're gonna get where we're going and how we're gonna know that we got there. So.
Excellent. All right. So Kim, I had shared with you, so there's kind of 2 ways to look at this. For me, the main purpose of asking for your assistance is to help us, I guess, facilitate a project. And the project for strategic planning is really, the definition of strategic has certainly changed over a while, right? So 10 years ago, it might have been you thinking about a long-term plan, like 25 years for a community, but anything 5 and 10 years right now is certainly strategic or long-term in our eyes here. Certainly there's some demographic and other data, statistical information that we can kind of plan out that many years, but in terms of what we want to try to accomplish over the next 5 or 10 is probably long enough for us to keep our scope with, without looking back and saying we gotta do this all over again.
Right.
You know, so there are two paths here that we're looking at. One is I've shared the fact that with you that we have a master plan that we've done. When was the last update to the master plan? Was it 2013?
7.
07 was the
That was
last
the
that I
update?
saw.
Okay. The good news about the master plan in 2007 is the recession we went through put a halt on changing much
Right.
of what the master plan was all about anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's really that outdated, to be quite frank with you. So we've got a master plan that's more of a land use plan, and it does touch into a number of different areas of town. What we don't have is the alignment on I'd say a master document that crosses over all the functional departments in the town and aligns us all together, right? And there's two ways to look at that. This is the wish list and going to the community and saying, you know, over the next 5 to 10 or longer years out, what would you like the community to look like? And then one of those answers may be this exact same, right? Which is certainly plausible. But if you look 10 years out, and if we grow at 2%, that's 20% growth. And so in 10 years from now, if we did grow at that 2% and we had another, 300, 400, 500 people living in town, what would that do for what would the impact be to the services on the community? So we almost have to do some backwards planning on that as well. So what I want to get accomplished is, one is I want to make sure that you get a sense of what we're looking for, and when I say we, I've got to make sure that I give the opportunity for these guys to chime in terms of what they would like to get accomplished in that. So I'll pause there, let these guys kind of share some thoughts, and then give you a chance to ask us some questions and go into the discussion a little further.
Super.
Questions, comments, guys?
We certainly have. We experienced that 20 years, from 1990 to 2010, where we were the fastest growing community in Essex County. Now Groveland's going through that. They're one of the fastest growing communities in the state, I think. And so times do change, and because of, there's still people that desire to live in Georgetown, there's still developments being built, and the population will grow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also with what we're doing with parks and government reviews, and trying to look far enough ahead to keep the character, which is part of what you guys do, but keep the character. And rural, I mean, Georgetown is still considered a rural community by the USDA. And it's a very historic community. So we need to maintain those without the community becoming so exclusive that it leaves a lot of kids, even our kids might not be able to afford. I've been many places in the country where people say that very thing. Mm-hmm. And so if we could grow in a manner that keeps the community very diverse, and then have those functions and amenities that people can enjoy in business. Biggest thing would be business growth. I think that would be of big help. And then it could be a rolling function that just modifies as we go on, as long as it's in place and the people keep it rolling. But that's what I'd be looking for.
Okay.
Gary, Dave?
Go ahead, I'm rather quiet at this moment.
Okay. For me, I want a sense of, what does the plan say when we make major decisions? We seem to, as a board, and all the boards and commissions do a great job. It does start with the structure of the way our government is set up, and we've had some input from the state on that issue. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to be explored, or where are we going with that? We did some work on it, and we kind of put it aside. I think that's vitally important, because the structure of the town will set up, a lot of the areas where people can take care of, when major decisions come about. But my fear is, we get together and, like tonight, we talked about parks. How does that fit into our overall plan of where we're going? Mm-hmm. We have a sense of the here and now, but we don't have a sense of where we're gonna be 10 years, 10 years down the road? What do we want this town to look like? And what do the people want it to look like? You know, I get a lot of calls about, well, we should have more business in town. Well, then I say, well, you know, be careful what you wish for. Do you want to be a bedroom community, or do you want to be, you know, a community that has, you know, give me a number, 25% business, 75% residential? Do you want to, you know, do you want a major mall in town? What do you really want? Well, you know, I don't know if people totally, you know, really know what they really want, but they want to have some relief on their real
Their
estate
taxes,
taxes. You know, and so I tell people, careful what you wish for, because I came from a community that had a lot of industrial base, and the tax rate was low. But to get from one side of the town to the other took a half an hour at times. So be careful what you wish for. You know, really thoroughly think about what you want this town to be 10 years from now. So I think that's vitally important. And again, it comes down to every decision that we make. We should have some type of influence of where we want to go, not just make a decision based on where we are right now and what's in front of us. You know, whether that's development, whether that's additional business in town, whether that's education, whether that's, you know, employment, you know, government structure, the whole 9 yards. So for me, every time I make a decision, I want to say, you know what, we just ticked off one thing off of our short-term plan, which leads to fulfilling a long-term vision. So, you know, in my own business, it's little rocks become big rocks. Identify the big rocks first and the little rocks afterwards to get to the big rocks. But every time you make a decision, it's not just about self-fulfillment or fulfillment for that day. It's about, oh yeah, we just laid another brick in the foundation for where we want to be 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, or whatever target we put out there. So that's what I want, so that it makes our job that much easier. And each commission and each board, you know, affordable housing, Phil and I sit on affordable housing, Gary's on CPC, everybody's on something different. And, you know, and we do a real good job. But are we really making decisions based on what everybody says, that's where we want to be? And that's where I'm at.
Right. And I might add that if we have this plan, then it could aid in decisions that we make. Something comes up that maybe came out of order. And we say, well, what do we have for a plan? How does this impact that? And whether we have to modify it. So, you know, Dave's made some good points, and there's a lot of work to be done, but I just think that we need to do that with the growth, because we're getting close to maximum build-out anyhow, another 3,000 people or so
Right.
could happen.
That, it's music to my ears, gentlemen. Gary, you want to have?
Well, if we do this, my first thought is there a cost to this? It doesn't look like it, what I'm looking at.
There is.
So okay, my first question is cost, because, you know, when I first came on the board, I got put on the government study committee, and I think we worked for maybe 4 or 5 years, and it's just disappeared. I don't know what happened to it.
We had the state come in, that's why.
Well, there you go. Now, I've been carrying this thing around with me since the state came in. I don't know how long. We've acted on very little of it. One of the things that they told us to do was look into our bylaws and update them. How old is this one, Mike? Maybe 3 years now? We're pushing 3 years on the DOR?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were here
And
3
one of the
years
things they
ago.
said was looking at your bylaws, and here we are on bylaws saying we need a committee, we need to update them. So, last meeting, we talked about, we hired a new fire chief, and we talked about a lot of things going forward, and I said, you know, are we gonna do that? Even David said, you know, so we're taking on a lot of work. If we do this, who's gonna follow through on it, and are we gonna follow through on it? And it could be a lot of work for us and our volunteers. I mean, one of the things that's right in the Selectmen's handbook is to have quarterly meetings with all the departments that work for us. I don't think we've done that in all the time that I've been on the board. So should we be paying money for something that I'm not sure it's gonna work in this town the way things are working right now? That's the fear that I have.
And I touched upon that a little bit, Gary, if I could.
I- no,
Add a
I-
little color to
you-
that. The point is, do we go to a strong town manager model? So I think it starts with the structure. I think structure is very important where we give, more
That's what I'm
authority
saying.
and responsibility
Oh, my God.
to the professionals. And, do we have enough professionals? Because, all of us at some point are gonna walk away from this, and there doesn't seem to be too many people behind us,
Right.
It's,
Municipal government
They'll be there.
as a sum total.
you don't know. I mean, again, for me, it starts with structure.
Yep.
And if you have that structure in place, then you have a clear plan of where you're going. And, laying out those, all of that with the public's input, everybody has a chance to say, hey, I want this, or I want that, or I think we should be doing this, and then come to a consensus. But to Gary's point, who's gonna do all this work?
Right.
And that's what happens. We have all great intentions. We stay till 10:30 at night. Although I will say, to Mike's credit, he's implemented a lot of those things.
Right.
The internal department stuff that they requested, but the big one, the 500-pound elephant in the room, or 1,000-pound elephant in the room, is that structure, the government structure. We never got back to, what are we going to be? What are we going to look like? And who's going to do all this work? We're volunteers, basically,
Yep.
elected volunteers.
Can I comment on one thing, and if I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
And it's not an argument, but it's, the last year, somewhere around this time, one of the things that kept coming in front of us were vendors. Public vendors that wanted to set up food carts and that, and we formed a committee. When I was talking with the chief, was some of the things that come before us last month, and the American Legion Beach and those bylaws were one of them. I believe he told me that the last time that committee met was August of last year. We've not asked them to come back to us with anything. So there's a lot of follow-up that I think we're missing.
Well, I think, I think within the strategic plan, one portion of the strategic plan could say, and just hypothetically, is, we're gonna review government structure over the next 2 years and make a decision. That's strategic in nature. This is more of a 30,000-foot view rather
Yep.
than all the nuts and bolts. So, yeah, you want the nuts and bolts to get to the 30,000-foot view. You gotta climb there at some point. But, so, I think within the strategic plan, you could add those things like a bylaw review. These are goals and steps that we wanna get to before we can even say, we wanna be 50% residential, 50% commercial. We don't even have the infrastructure to even handle that.
Right.
So lay the foundation first, and again, all these things that Gary's bringing up, I agree with them 100%, could be in the strategic plan as a goal along the way to get us where we really wanna be. Our strategic plan could be, we wanna have the most efficient working government, and that's the basis of our strategic plan. Because we feel like if that's the case, then everything else will fall in
Yep.
place. It's all about how you structure this. And, with goals, timeframes, and the who's gonna do it is big,
Yeah, so even just getting to a document, that's why I've asked Kim in the Collins Center to come help us, because there's a large portion of this is project management, managing the actual facilitation of the process. And guys, I don't know about you, but I don't have that many more hours left after all my committees and stuff that I'm on. Anyhow, to have more committees coming in, and that's just an issue. The way that our government runs is that we've got volunteers coming in instead of they should be reporting to what I think is a stronger town administrator or manager. That said, I think there's a number of people. Gary, who's going to do all this stuff? So you talk about the execution of the plan.
Well, one of the things that the chief mentioned tonight about if we form a committee that I heard, I don't know if anybody else did, but he said to form a committee out of the paid people that we have now.
Yep.
And that is sort of what we did with the food truck vendor. It was mostly paid people, but they haven't, from what I could be wrong, from what I understand, there hasn't been when they met last, Mike? I believe you're on that committee.
Yeah, it was last August.
Well, but we did
Or-
adopt an SOP.
is there a
and
reason
put
to
a
meet
license
again?
in place.
No.
If there's no reason to
Not
meet.
that I was aware of.
But did
After-
we ever implement everything? I didn't think we did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
If
Well, licensing.
we just haven't had a food vendor come into town since then.
Okay.
I mean, we have an application and rules and regulations they have to follow.
Didn't we have to take that to a bylaw?
No, it's a selectmen's regulation.
Okay.
Similar to.
But your
the-
point is well said. So, and here's the thing. So, who's going to actually execute this stuff? Everybody. That's the point. I mean, the benefit of planning. first of all, planning is not an event, it's a discipline, and if we've got to get into the habit of doing better planning. And I will say that there are pockets that do really well planning and execute their plans on an annual or even a 3-year basis and go back to their short-term plan and adopt that into their 3-year plan. But the other part is just alignment. I mean, when you are saying that we don't really get a good sense of what's going on, people are doing some of their own things in their own silos around town. We don't have a chance to follow up with these committees and these other boards and departments and stuff like that. That is true. And that's what this strategic planning process should help us. It should help us at least give us some guidance on what they are doing. And then the other part is to identify holes. I mean, this is the biggest thing is for me is what are the, first of all, I'm leaving. I've got like 8 months left on this board. But my biggest thing that I want to make sure I leave with is that we have identified what our future problems are going to be, and that we actually start to think about addressing that. In addition to that, there's a cost to everything, right? Not just the actual planning process, but what are the costs and the budgets that are required for us to actually implement some of these components of whatever we decide that we want to do. And a lot of this, a lot of what we're doing now is just putting it all together and prioritizing. Most of these initiatives and projects that we're doing, I think we, in our gut, feel that this is where we want to take the town, this is what the town wants, so we're doing them. But we're just not, I don't think we're doing the best job in terms of prioritizing, looking at some of the unintended consequences at some of these things, and identifying what our risks are out there. So that's, see what you're hearing, we've got a little bit of, do we really want to go down this path?
Yep.
And I mean, I know this, I think of the school department, they put, they have 60-something% of the budget, they do put a long-term plan together. I could pick up their plan anytime and get a sense of what they're trying to accomplish. Whether I agree with it or not, that's a different story.
Right.
Okay? I mean, I kind of do, but some folks may or may not. I know, in the next 3 years, here are the things that they want to accomplish. And they do put an annual plan out together that, is working toward accomplishing that. I mean, look, the plan itself is worthless if it sits on a shelf. You've got to build an annual plan based on that plan, and every 3 or 4 years go back and look at that long-term plan. So everybody who works in any department in the town should have a copy of this plan, so they know what they're doing and where they're going and why they're doing these things. And obviously the townspeople would love to, I'm sure, like to get a sense that we are actually responsible and putting together some long-term vision with their input, and we know what we're doing up here. So those are my and our thoughts behind that.
Okay.
Help us understand from your perspective, if you can help us.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different pieces at work here, right? So I heard a bit about business and sort of the economic development side of things, heard a bit about structure, and both of those could be sort of entirely separate projects. An economic development plan is sort of based unto itself, and the structure stuff is a charter reform project, which I'm sure you're familiar with, involves, another commission and all of that good stuff. But what I think my goal is to get at is sort of what's happening within these departments a little bit more internally, in the sense of sort of what do you need to do your job? How is it that, what are the issues that you come up against? Where are you struggling? Where do you feel like there are resources that you need? Also, sort of what are your interactions with other departments and commissions and what have you in the town? What are the kind of holdups? Where are the barriers to getting things done? And some of that might be process driven, some of it might be resource driven, and really kind of what I want to get at is thinking about where we can rectify those things in order to find efficiencies. So then we sit down and we kind of get the input from everybody from each of these departments, from the people who are really going to do the work. Because if they're not the one setting the goal, they really aren't going to have as much of a stake in meeting that goal. So what are your goals for this department? What is it that you want to accomplish? And then let's figure out how to get there and how we're going to know that we got there. Like, what are the measures to get there? What data do we need to find in order to be able to say, to show that we got there, that sort of thing.
So Kim, the only thing I'm hearing you on that, and I think it sounds to me that's more operational planning. What I'm thinking about And we're trying to do is just get the roadmap, the vision first.
Okay, so just the end.
We need to get to what that end goal looks like. And
Okay.
it may be the same.
Yep.
And then figure out what are some of the key initiatives that we probably need to to accomplish whatever goals we set.
Mhm.
Once we figure that out, then we can operationalize, I think, what you're saying there. So I think the first thing we need to do is we really need to figure out from a long-term perspective, before we look at the efficiencies of, they may be doing the wrong things,
Mhm.
or the right things, right? That fit within a longer term, a 10-year vision. But if my only concern, if I went down to our finance and accounting department now and I said, what are your challenges? It's all gonna be very tactical, operational right
Yep,
now.
yep.
And it should be. I mean, that's what they're day in and day out.
Mhm.
What I wanna know is, if we grow to, another 1,000 people in 10 years, what's the impact to you?
Yep.
And then how do you think you're going to need to service them? Then we can start talking about the operational efficiencies behind that, like maybe technologies and staffing and et cetera, et cetera. Make
Mhm.
sense?
It does.
Okay. And in order for us to get to that, that's where we need your help.
Yep, okay.
Okay?
And I think much of the process sort of remains the same, just the questions become different, in thinking about looking at it from that angle.
Yeah, and you guys, I'd like to get your input on this, and you as well, Mike. So here's what I kind of envision. I would like some assistance in putting together either a workshop or maybe a few workshops where we can get a sense of what it is the community is looking to drive toward, right? So we've got a lot of different generations that live in town, so there's certainly a vision of some of the elderly in town that may be X, and the millennials moving into town that are expecting a lot more than what we offer out there. So how do we marry that all together and then prioritize that? And then, so it would, we have done this before with part of the Collins Center, and they came in for like a 4-hour workshop, and for us it was just really setting priorities for the town at the time. It wasn't.
Budgeting.
Yeah, it was more budgeting. But I can envision maybe one external workshop like that, and then
Definitely.
maybe one internal workshop with our department, and Mike would kind of, facilitate that. And these are just, I'm thinking out loud here, any other suggestions? And then from there, how do you synthesize everything that we got? So we need to, figure out from a project management standpoint, what does that project plan look like? What can we ask you to do? What should we be doing to help drive that? Who needs to participate? And I still think we need to kind of get a sense of what we're asking you for. We're not prepared yet.
Well, and also it's hard to know without that other input, right? So it's hard, of course, that's the whole point, is that you don't want it to come from you exclusively.
Yep.
So until we get to that stage of having those meetings, it's hard to flesh out what comes afterwards, I think, is kind of where I'm at.
Well, we can help you with that.
Okay.
We can, because I don't want to keep it open-ended. I think that if we have these workshops, spend the next 2 or 3 weeks after synthesizing and organizing what we heard, and then thinking about, I guess, maybe a priority setting session or something like that, and then some more public meetings. Again, I'm trying to.
I think the vision is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is getting the vision from not only all the volunteers and it's the same people on the same boards.
Right.
I think we need to get the townspeople involved to say, again, what's the vision? Where do you want to see this town 5 years? I mean, I've been here now since 2006. So that was it's 9 years. I know where I'd like to see the town go. I like to see where I like to know. I know where I don't want the town to go.
Yep, fair.
So I think that's really important to come up with that vision. And then how do you, that vision, whatever that vision is, okay, here's the big steps to get to that vision. How long is it going to take? And back into it, like Phil says, and then work the operational issues, the how-tos, and who, the nuts and bolts of it. But I think it starts with a big vision to say, we want the town to look like, and I'll just use a crazy example. Amesbury has gone through a huge transformation in the last 10 years. We want to look, again, I'm not going to say it that way, but, we want to look like Amesbury.
Yeah.
Or we want to look like, we want to be a sleepy little town like, somewhere on the South Shore. Again, the vision of what we wanna be, you know, then we can figure out how we're gonna get there. And there's so many components to that. Volunteerism, structure, economic development. There's a whole myriad of things that get us there. So,
Gary?
I,
not, and I'm not saying I wanna be like Amesbury, I'm just using this as
No, that was a
crazy
good example because they have changed a ton.
Right, right,
Yeah.
sorry.
we,
I'll be getting the messages, move to Amesbury, Dave.
I work with them actually. They're great, but
I've been here all my life, I'm the one, and Georgetown is my vision. Where you want a vision for Georgetown, see, so that's where we sort of disagree, at least I would disagree some, because we're not all gonna have the same vision. Now, if you could come up with something that pulled us all into 80 or 90% of that vision, that would be great.
That's what
But-
I
but-
think we
but
wanna do.
well,
That's what I'm saying. That's
this is
exactly
what
I'm saying.
I wish we could have had that for Pembroke, and that's where Phil told me when I mentioned once that if we could have tried to get some more agreement where we wouldn't have had the division that we have, we could have all come up with it. 85% of the town could have voted for it, and I got told that I'm a dreamer. Well, I like being a dreamer. So, I mean, I hope that I see the vision part a problem, because my vision is here. Georgetown is my home, and it's a part of me. And I'm gonna say something that another selectman said to me once. He got told that you guys come here, you change things, you raise our taxes, and then you move out. And that's a very true statement. So be careful with the vision. And I liked what, you know, she started off with saying, here's what I think, that we need to go talk to the board, see the problems, this and that. But I got the feeling, Phil, that wasn't your vision, because you wanted to change it a little bit. And
On the process or the town?
on the process.
Absolutely. I don't wanna start,
So-
bottom up and then just start
top down.
top down.
Yeah, that made sense to
And
me.
again, Gary, like I said, the vision may be to keep the town the same,
And
and not change
The
anything.
the only trick, and I will say, and I live in the city of Somerville, so I mean, talk about places that have changed a ton, right?
We've all changed.
The trick with saying that this is your vision is that if you then sit back and let it stay, what it looks like in 10 years won't be what your vision was. So I think it's the getting to that place of being proactive and saying, I want it to look like this in 10 years or 20 years or 3 years, whatever the case may be.
Or it may look something different that you didn't want.
Well, right, or you
And
run the
it-
risk of letting it turn into something
But you see,
completely opposite.
yes, you wanna have some control. I agree with where your town goes, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm on, this board has appointed me, the Economic Development Committee. You mentioned that as one of them.
Yep.
I've been on that for years. We're a little slow right now, but when we had something before us, I thought that we overcame one big obstacle. I'd love to see somebody come in to work with us, if it was free. But,
Have to eat.
a grant or something, you know. But,
Maybe-
but what I wanna say, Dave, was how I got there was I was in disagreement with a lot of what they were saying. And I started going to their meetings, cause I was in disagreement. But we got along well, and they actually asked me to be on the board. You know, even though I was in disagreement with them, I mean, so there was, you know, so, I know we can all disagree, but, as long as we go out of here, we're not in fist fights at the end of the night, you know,
I'm a little too old for that, Gary.
we still have. No, let me tell you,
Yeah, I know,
I won't mention any towns, but
Yeah,
some
yeah.
neighboring towns, it gets that close,
Well,
so.
you know, maybe Phil and I
but,
come from, we're a little jaded on this because we come from private industry where, you know, if you wanna stay there and work there, you have to come to some type of consensus
Right.
or you move on, you know, and you know what, the first day this is funny because 9 years ago, the first day I walked into this town to live here, someone got up and said the same thing to me that Gary just said.
The other
that one
selectman
day.
that said it to me.
He got up to me and he said, you know, you guys come and change everything,
Yeah.
raise the taxes, you have a vision and, you know, change everything and then leave.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm approaching this and I'm gonna stay here the rest of my life. I won't stay here in the winter, but that's one thing. But, you know, so the point
Has
is.
nothing to do with
so,
Georgetown,
yeah,
that's like Massachusetts.
we're never gonna have everybody on the same page.
That I agree.
Right.
Never. But if we can get 90% or even
Definitely.
80% consensus of where we wanna, you know, where we wanna be, because
Yeah.
every decision we make should be pushing us to where we wanna go.
Right.
Rather than just arbitrary, no, I'm not saying it's all arbitrary, but.
For
you know,
sure.
you know.
Or decided by, like you said, the same
It's
group of people
reactionary
who
rather
serve
than
on all of the
proactive.
things.
It's reactionary rather than being proactive about
Mhm.
things,
But
you know?
I have a feeling that there's some here that would like to see a big change in town government, a town charter, a strong town manager, those things got mentioned, and I'm like, I don't see that. Yes, we need professionals to run things, of course, but as to what David just said, you both come from a corporate background, and we gotta remember, this isn't a corporation, this is a town, and to me, that's where I go into, you know, I've said this before, I believe that what the Board of Selectmen should be are the town fathers. It also describes in the Board of Selectmen handbook that some look at themselves as CEOs, and so, yes, we do have that, and there's probably a need for both of that. I'm the town father, that's all I consider, I don't consider myself the CEO of this town, I consider this my family.
I think you need a balance. you know,
I agree.
Balance of both.
I agree, and I mean, as I think it even says in the proposal, like we certainly aren't trying to come in and change the way that this town is run, or any town or city is run. There's a lot of respect, and you know, again, coming from Massachusetts, there's a lot of respect for that history and for the fact that there are 351 municipalities who all run completely differently than the other 350, and nobody wants to change that. That's, you know, that's not kind of the approach that we're trying to take. But it is finding some way to marry the varying interests in the town, knowing that everybody is planning to live here together, and we want to make that as cohesive an experience as possible for all of them.
There's a recent news story, and I feel bad, there's a selectman out there somewhere in Massachusetts that I'd like to send some money to a fund to help
The one who
him
didn't
out.
run?
The one who painted the sidewalks.
Oh, in Billerica.
And he got sued by his town manager.
He did.
To me, that's upside down.
did.
But, you know.
Well, see, for me, getting back to the structure issue, I'm not in favor, I don't know what I'm in favor of yet, but I just want options.
Yep.
You know, and I use the strong town manager as an example. Not to say I would support it or I won't support it.
Mhm.
The point is, you know, somebody has to do this work and the professionals have to do the work. We can set the vision all we want, but if we don't have the tools in place to do it, we can't do it ourselves. And one of my biggest concerns is that, I mean, look, Phil's, you know, done a great job for 3 terms. He's done. A lot of these boards and commissions, people are leaving, and we're having problems getting people to volunteer. It won't be very long where we're gonna have the situation where there's nobody here to do the work. And I think that's where, you know, maybe adding a little bit more professionals and looking at our structure.
Yeah.
Even the state, the Department of Revenue told us, they couldn't believe how many volunteers we have and how we're able to do what we do. I don't think that business model is sustainable long-term, I really don't.
Yeah, and that, again,
We don't have the time.
that really does go back to sort of the separate charter reform idea, which it may come up in some facet in doing this, you know, sort of type of strategic plan, but more so to make any of those changes would be a much bigger sort of scope of
No, I understand,
charter
right, but-
reform.
but I think that could be mentioned.
Yeah, but
Yes, it
that-
absolutely could.
Yeah, but I mean, especially if you're really talking about operational planning.
Yep.
I mean, you're gonna identify whether or not we have the right form of structure to support their operations efficiently out there. I
Right.
mean, that would be part of that. And if it comes up that it is a recommendation, then yeah, we do understand it's a long-term initiative for us. That's, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5-year project.
Absolutely.
But we can start that. And I'm not even advocating. I mean, on paper, I know what the benefits and some of the cons might be for that, but I need to know operationally, what does that mean? You know, is there efficiencies and effectiveness in the actual job?
Well, the key to a vision is to ensure that it's inclusive of every faction of the community. That's where the real work is, to get all the factions of the community, all the departments, everybody participating in the process, so
And
that
that's
their
gonna
voices
be
are
the
heard.
toughest.
That's gonna be the toughest
That will
part.
be the
I
hardest
agree.
part.
We have, and it will, and I'd love to, if you can find some best practices on reaching out to the folks that typically don't pay attention. Not that I think that those are only the people that I want to, you know, target out there, but there's gotta be that middle ground of people who are very interested and just don't, you know, they're passive about it. But, I don't know how to reach those folks, you know? I mean,
Well, you know, usually it's some big thing, like, you know, like Pembroke. Now, whether I was in favor of that particular choice or not is really immaterial. What I really liked was that 80% of the electorate turned out to vote. That was real important,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And it went one way, and
Yeah.
so.
So let's put a
But that's
$45
more
million price tag
democracy.
on this and see if we can get it come out.
Right, there you go, Kim charges $41 million.
But I like to get to Doug's point, we have to be sensitive, the vision has to incorporate everybody.
Yeah.
And it has to, from, demographically, from senior citizens to millennials to, townies to, people that like me have been here only 9 years, everybody wants something different.
Right.
But you know what, you'd be surprised that we probably all want pretty much close to the same thing.
Or at
It's how
the
we get
times
there
when
is the
they're not
problem.
necessarily competing interests, right? So it
Right.
might not be necessarily pitting one against another. It might be that you find you're able to do a lot of different things, and then everybody ends up happy. I mean, that's a little,
You know, I mean, the growth has
utopian,
always
but-
been a big concern.
Yeah.
I remember when, I don't know if it ever changed, but we got to a point to where we said, only 15 houses a year. But that was never really enforced. There were end runs around everything.
Yeah.
The town grew because there was such a demand
Had a crash.
from people to move into this.
Well, I think we have to give this town more credit than what we're doing, because look at what we've accomplished in the last 5 or 6 years in this town, even though there's some contentious moments where people agree and they don't agree.
Mhm.
But look what we have accomplished for the benefit of almost every demographic in town. We're working on a senior center right now. That's another big, area. So we're trying to hit all the areas. My biggest concern, and I said it from the beginning, is every time we make a decision, I worry about where that's taking us.
Yep.
We all understand where we're going with this thing, and I don't like making arbitrary decisions based on the heat of the moment.
All right, well, at least with the strategic plan, there could be a timeline
Right.
set out.
Right.
So that we don't have this feeling, it has to be done in 5 years. It could be a 10-year plan.
Right.
And so that we
Right.
we didn't get this part, but we'll move it out. But if, to do everything jumped into one big jumble, just costs too much money.
Absolutely.
It has to be resource driven too. I mean,
Yes.
we only have so many resources to be what we wanna be.
Yep.
And people have to be realistic about that. For me, I was a big supporter of the school, but I always, in the back of my mind, was I was gonna fight to the dickens for a senior center right after.
Mhm.
And I've held to that commitment. So that was my strategic plan. My own strategic plan, but, I was hoping everybody else is on board with that,
So I guess my only question for you left would be, what do services that you provide actually cost?
So thinking about what this proposal looked like, which I think we're gonna kind of nix and change a lot of it here, we would be looking at about $15,000. So to plan for this sort of like workshop style meeting, getting together, a cross section of the community and to facilitate that and to kind of, get people's ideas is like around $1,500. So we're probably gonna wanna do that a couple of times. At least twice, I would say, once with the community and once with, sort of a cross-section of the staff and internal departments.
So that's inclusive of, contained within the 15.
Oh, yes, it is. But yeah, if we're picking apart, and it sounds like we are, some of the pieces of this, if we want to get down to kind of how we want to start, I would say that's
Kim,
sounds like the top.
Be careful. Put a number out there, and we're gonna stick to that. So
Well, okay,
here's what I
fair,
would suggest
fair.
we do. Let's do this. We gotta define the scope a little bit deeper of what we want your services to provide. I would like to work with Mike and come up with a couple of options, or at least maybe a project plan.
Yep.
Maybe the three of us together can get on the phone and just talk it, and then I'll socialize that with our board
Great.
and see if these guys are comfortable with that.
Okay.
And
then we'll
Yeah, I
backwards
mean,
from there.
Yeah, I've run projects. The issue is who's going to do what in
Right.
this project is the bigger,
Mhm.
fine, we give you 20 grand. That's great for your services, but
Well, I know, I did say 15.
I'm trying to help you out here,
Oh,
Kim.
for sure. But
So-
and for me, without knowing the players, it's hard to put
and
put
we
that
need
out.
to
Yeah.
we need to satisfy that as well, and make sure that we can find a budget for whatever we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
So I think as a follow-up, maybe Mike and the three of us can at least start that conversation and bring in these guys here.
Sounds
as
good.
well. I'm gonna pause there. Mike, you've been pretty quiet, listening and patiently. Because a lot of this is gonna fall on him, and he's just
To do
saying,
it, right.
holy crap,
just
my
do all the
fall
work
is
at the
gonna be
end."
nuts. So, your thoughts there, Mike?
Well, I'm very familiar with traditional strategic planning. Done it, been there, done that, in many different communities. I think Kim came in, and I know the Collins Center is now very performance management oriented. That, if I'm,
Yeah, that's fair.
you know.
Yeah, with volunteers.
And I'm a big proponent of that too, but that's way
We're not there yet.
above us.
Yep.
I mean,
I got that now.
yeah.
Performance is that you didn't get a phone call that something didn't get done.
Right.
That's performance right now.
But,
We don't
you
have
know,
the systems to measure that.
I agree, you know, you have to have a vision. And the vision is actually something that's not attainable, in my mind. It's out there, and it's a utopian vision, but you have building blocks to get there. And the whole thing is you have everybody has one mission. You can talk to and they all have to be able to understand it and live it. And if their job isn't tied into the mission, then they shouldn't be doing that job. One of the great stories about a mission, I don't know if it was Kennedy or Johnson, but he was down in NASA, and he asked this guy in obviously a janitor's uniform, what did he do here? And he goes, I put men on the moon. The janitor, he had bought in to that mission. So, and getting people involved is the tricky part. But I have seen it done, and we kind of did it with the inserts for the electric bills, where we asked people to join. But in a formal visioning session, everybody gets their address book. Gary, you get your Rolodex. And identify all the people you know, and you send them out a printed, at the print shop, embossed invitation to this meeting and this process. People want, you know, and the people that wouldn't normally just volunteer or raise their hand, if you ask them to do something, they are more likely to do it. So I'd like to, you know, throw that out there as a way to get more people. Yeah, you want the regulars there, but you need new blood, or nothing's gonna happen.
That's why I'm stepping down, Kim. 9 years. Yeah, I mean, I think as Mike said, I mean, this is fairly traditional when you're looking at vision, mission, values, doing a SWOT analysis, all that fun stuff, right? So let's take that as a next step to help scope this out for you.
Great.
And then figure out if these guys will give me the money to drive my initiative here.
Okay. Sounds good.
We should find it someplace.
We'll see.
I like that attitude.
All right. I'll talk to Mike. I'll share my schedule with him, and he'll reach out to you.
Okay.
And see if we can find some time.
Sounds great.
All right. And
Yes.
and if there's and Mike, maybe you can help. If there are other communities that have just gone through this, I'd like to understand some of the what worked well and what didn't,
Sure.
and maybe we can, instead of falling down those traps, prevent this.
Definitely, yeah, and there's a few that we're working with now as well, so we'll have a good cross-section of communities as kind of a comparison
Well,
point.
that
I
would be
think, so.
similar to Georgetown?
Not necessarily similar, but at least, you know, sort of all different from each other, so that you have a cross-section of some type, so that when you start to see those commonalities across, you know, all different types of municipalities, you know it's going to be something to pay attention to. The town of Adams is one that we're working with now, the town of Hopkinton, Winthrop is another. So I mean, all it's pretty varied, but
Yeah, share best practices. And some will be able to do, others will look and say, if we only had 3 other people,
right.
or another 50,000 to spend with Collins Center. All right, well, Kim, thank
Fantastic.
you so
Yes,
much
thank
for
you
coming
all.
out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I'm glad you stuck around
No,
to
I
see
did.
the small town politics in
I
action.
love it. And I feel like it gave me a better understanding of the town, so that was good. Good timing.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kim. Have a nice evening and
You the same.
safe ride home. Okay, let's see. Just a few more things here. Got a thank you to Holly Willard, our animal inspector. I'm just looking for. There it is. All right. So I will just read this real quick anyhow. So, dear Miss Willard, personally thank you, but on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, thank you for your service to the town of Georgetown. Your services as the Georgetown Animal Inspector for the last 21 years have been remarkable. 21 years. Wow, Holly. Your duties have included stable inspections, quarantines on all applicable animals, and all necessary paperwork to the Massachusetts Division of Animal Health. During this time, you have also held an annual rabies clinic. We appreciate the time and energy that such a commitment has required. Thank you for a job well done on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. So, Holly, that's a remarkable 21 years. I'm sure the folks that you have worked with have been touched over the years, and we appreciate the service that you've provided us. And wish you good luck moving on to whatever next comes for you. All right. Okay, what else do we have? Let's, Town Administrator's Report. Mike, what do you got going on?
That's what he just read.
Oh, that's what you just read.
Actually, I'm playing catch-up. I just got back from vacation at 3 p.m. this afternoon, so I went through 243 emails, and that's about all I've done.
All right, well, welcome back.
Should we all sign this or just Phil?
It's on behalf of all of us. Go ahead and sign it all.
Question
Please.
that, well, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Gary.
You've probably got some idea, I know you've been on vacation, but maybe there's something that David mentioned earlier, you can update us a little bit on the process, on progress on the senior center.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we worked feverishly, really. Before I left, we went through the selection process of a designer. We had two submissions, and I set up a subcommittee, a review committee, and that included Colleen, myself, Ed Desjardins, and then one of the board members of Council on Aging, and we reviewed the submissions and scored them and selected and met with the designer, and he came out right away. We have a letter, well, we have a pending letter of agreement. I wasn't able to get the actual contract done, but he's already begun work on it. 'Cause it's the old cart before the horse. We talked about this. They charge you what it costs to build, and they can't tell us how much it costs to build until they do a basic design and then get pricing. They don't ask for bids, but they have pricing companies that say, well, if you're gonna build X, it's gonna cost Y. One thing that we did accomplish, and I think it was very beneficial, if you remember, the general design was to put an office in each one of those classrooms. That would have raise the cost exponentially, because it's by square footage of the rooms. So, and Colleen has agreed with this design. We're putting 3 offices in one of those rooms. That way you're not changing the plumbing for the entire building, the electricity, heating, you just deal with that one room. And the initial thoughts about an entrance. And Gary knew about this, and he shared it with Colleen. There's an old entrance to that section of the building, and it would be canopied, and it's right now it's covered by garbage bins, and we didn't know that was there. I don't know who knew it was there.
That's in the back parking lot?
No, in the front.
In the front.
Oh.
And because that one entrance on the side there,
Yeah.
that is sloped. It catches the rainwater, it catches the snow. It would be a very problematic entrance. And you don't go into, when you walk through that door, boom, you're in the school. We won't be in the school anymore. The entrance would actually go through what's proposed for the new administrative offices, where Colleen and her staff were gonna be. So they'd come right into their office and then go right out into the hallway. So people would be monitored coming in and out.
Right.
It was really a great preliminary design, and we're trying to keep the costs way, as low as we possibly can, but still have, good program room. So, thank you for asking that, Gary, because it was a major development. And, the only issue is the construction timing. We had a lot of people ask for the proposal. Only 4 firms came to the mandatory site visit. And then only 2 of those 4 actually submitted. And I did get questions from one of the other firms that said, are we flexible on the schedule? And I said, yeah, we can be flexible, to a point. But if we're going to fall town meeting to get construction money, and we can't put it out to bid until we have the funding, we could be looking at a spring opening, maybe March. It's because we're gonna be asking contractors to do the construction in November and December. You got the holidays involved. It's probably not gonna happen. But, hopefully, late February, March, it could, who knows, it could slip to April, but, it'll be next to impossible to get in January.
Mr. Chairman,
Certainly.
and this is Gary, you all set?
Yeah.
Do we have a written agreement in place?
They sent me one over while I was away.
So we're gonna see that at the next meeting?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Would it be advisable to send it out ahead of time before, way in advance, rather than the Thursday before or whatever?
As soon as I can get it back from, I would ask KMP to fast track it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Couple questions for you. So we have the State of the Town meeting all set, the date, which I don't have in terms of, right in front of me. But have we gotten a chance to reach out to all the department heads?
No.
Okay, let's do that ASAP. People are starting to get back from all their vacations. And then the workshop date to kick off our strategic planning, I think we said for October something. somewhere in our notes. I wanna see if we can still make that happen.
Well, yeah, I'll work with Kim on that.
Yeah, so we'll just start from that date, but I just wanna make sure that we're starting to communicate this, so this isn't a last minute stuff, especially the state of the town. I wanna give them as much advance notice as possible.
Mhm. Okay.
Alright. It's been a busy summer. Alright. We have some appointments, approvals. Let's see, we have, we got a letter here, from, Janice McGrain, our town clerk, regarding there's still a vacancy that's open on the board of registrars.
Chair.
You have an update?
There's actually going to be 2 vacancies.
Oh, I was hoping the update was the other way.
One of the, excuse me, one of the other Board of Registrar members has, his house is under agreement, and he's planning moving out of town.
Okay.
So we're looking for 1 Republican registrar and 1 Democrat registrar. I've talked to several people, and a couple may have expressed some interest, but
Okay.
Jan hasn't heard from them yet. And, but yeah, so they'll be down 2, and she's starting to get frantic, because there's a lot, with this election year coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
We really, and I would send out a plea to the community. If you're a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, being on the Board of Registrars, this coming year will be a little more work because it's a presidential election. But if you put 20 hours in a whole year for work, I think that would be a lot. So it's not something that, if you're around town a lot, then you'd be able to come in and do the job. I would ask that you contact Jan McGrain or Kathy Roach in the town clerk's office and express your interest, but you do need to be a registered Republican or a registered Democrat.
Thanks, Dave.
Actually, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
isn't there a stipend or something that goes with that?
There is a small stipend, it's $10 an hour, I think.
When you're covering office hours or something. When you're covering office hours.
When you're covering, yes.
Yeah.
It's not when you come in to sign stuff,
Right.
you don't, it's when you're sitting, town hall, when you wait for people to come in to register to
Register to
vote or
vote.
have a petition or, but if you're stamping nomination papers, that's not considered part of that. But you do get some stipend anyhow.
Gotcha. All right, thanks, guys. Just moving on here, we've got a couple of declarations of surplus personal property, if anyone wants to,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, that we surplus the property as submitted by the library, which includes OCAD catalog, a Dell computer processor, Acer computer monitor, and a Dell keyboard. All to be obsolete, broken, all are broken, obsolete, or replaced.
can I have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion?
So these just all go to scrap?
The library can dispose of them
Yeah, as they see fit, okay.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we surplus a chair that had been submitted by the Conservation Commission, Conservation Agent Steve Brzezowski as submitted, 10-year-old broken chair.
Here, a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Okay, is there anything I missed on this? This is a pretty busy night, just wanna make sure I got everything. I think we nailed everything here. Okay, so our next meeting, Monday, August 31st.
Is that 3 weeks from now?
Monday, August 31st.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's 3 weeks from now. They may possibly
The
be-
following weekend is Labor Day, right?
Correct.
Right.
It's a possibility I might be late, but I should be here.
Okay, well, let's keep it there. And then, after August 31st, what's our next scheduled one after that?
September 21st.
Um,
Which is is another 3 weeks.
Let's, see if we can move maybe up to the 14th, if
I
that's.
think you had asked, I think I posted one for the 14th. I think you already asked that we did the
Okay.
14th and we
Is
have the
it-
21st.
Oh, that got changed to the 14th?
I think we have both. I think Phil had asked us to reserve a room for the.
Yep.
So it's the 21st.
And the 14th.
And the
And,
14th.
oh, and the 4th, all right.
Yeah. So August 31st, September 14th, and then September 21st. Okay. Let's keep those there. We certainly have a lot of business coming up, so.
Going back to 6:30 on those, right? Once we
Yeah,
get to
fine.
September ones, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the next August one I left at 6 on the.
Yep.
Yes, so August 31st will still remain at 6. Okay. Does anyone have any comments, questions, announcements before we close up?
Has there been, I'm just wondering on the senior center, has there been any indication of a ballpark cost on the senior center?
On one of the, and I'm not gonna, on one of the proposals, the one that we didn't choose was well over $300,000.
So I guess we're looking at borrowing money for this?
No, that would be too little to borrow.
Okay.
You have to be in the $1 million and above range.
So we need to find it within our available resources?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm tired. Okay. All right, good night, everyone. Thanks very much for joining.